Blog Talk Radio.
Chiamo Afurakanu Afuraitkaitut Neye Ujirada Metinde Ujirapo Kwesi Radnehambata Akan Akwamo Mana Maruka Etipi Mu Ujirapo. That means greetings to all Afurakani people, Afuraitkaitut people, Africans, black people. Today is Ujira Day. My name is Ojirapo Kwesi Radnehambata Akan Akwamo Mana Maruka Etipi Mu Ojirapo, the Akwamo Nation in North America, the Ojirapo of the Okwamo Nation in North America. Yet I say we appreciate you tuning in once again to our broadcast. We're just going to send out a couple of messages, and we're going to post some links. We have a lot of information to get to. So we're posting links. For example, first link, the Nhoma page on ojirapo.com, ODWIRA F as in free, o.com/Nhoma. You can go to that page, and that's where you can get all of the citations, the links that we're going to read from with regard to the book. Okay, so we're just sending out a couple of messages. Give me 1 second. All right. So we're getting some people in here. We're gonna put up the KUKUU-TUNTUM. It's gonna be one of the texts, so you can check that one out. We'll put the names of the text here. KUKUU-TUNTUM, the Ancestral Jurisdiction. The Malanechi, Divine Law and Divine Hate. That's going to be one of them. And we're going to have a couple more. So you can go to that page. You can download the free ebook versions of those publications, and we're going to show where we're going to get the information from. A couple of announcements. Of course, we have our shows 3 times a week: Joda, Benada, and Arukuda, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. On Joda, which yesterday we had Akanfo, Abosom, ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion, where we focus specifically on the Akan tradition, giving insight and accurate information to correct misinformation with regard to the culture, cosmology, and so forth. Of course, today is Ojira. Ojira means purification. We deal with Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitut, ancestral religion in general, as it relates to culture, as it relates to nation building and so forth, development, sovereignty, security, and so forth. We talk about Ojira being the term meaning purification. Ojira means purification. In the Akan language, Ojira means purification in the language of ancient Kanat and Kemet, so-called Nubia and Egypt, of course, because we are the same people, just like various other groups on the continent, who migrated from the Hapi region, migrated west, central, south, reconstituted ourselves, reestablished our civilization, and then we migrated further into the forest belt, savanna region of where Ghana, Ivory Coast is today. And then some of us were taken from those regions and forced into the Western Hemisphere during the Musuo Keske, the Great Perversity, the enslavement process. But we're the same people genetically and spiritually, and of course, culturally. So our languages are the same. We're going to go into tonight. You'll see, we'll give more evidence of that, as we've done in our various publications, about the connection between the language, the culture, the names of the deities, the ritual functions, and so forth, across the board, from ancient Kanat and Kemet through Akan culture and culture just across the continent in general, up until today, up until our practices in the Western Hemisphere in the forms of Hoodoo, Juju, Voodoo in North America, in the so-called United States, in the Caribbean, South America, and so forth. So this is why Jida means purify. Ojida means purification in the Akan tradition, and also a celebration of purification, which is our New Year's celebration. Obrajida, called Ojida by millions of Akanfo. And of course, Jida means purification as well as a celebration of purification in the language of ancient Kemet. And of course, if you look on the front, the images that we show that are fading in and out, showing up on the Blog Talk channel as you listen to this broadcast, you'll see that we posted the Medutu, the hieroglyphs, spelling out the term Jida, showing it means the exact same thing. So when we talk about purification, we say that Ojida, or purification, operationalizes Nanason. It operationalizes Afuraitkaitut, ancestral religion, meaning African ancestral religion. Of course, ancestral religion is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. The expansive and contractive poles of what we call Nanason, Afuraitkaitut, ancestral religion across the board, no matter where black people are in the world, in essence, is the ritual incorporation of divine law. So through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine law, divine order. We incorporate law in that process. And then through ritual, we restore balance to our lives by rejecting those things, objects, deeds, and entities that would otherwise keep us in balance or place us in imbalance. So we incorporate law and we restore balance through ritual. That is the essence of Nanason, which is just a catch-all term for Afuraitkaitut, ancestral religion, whether it's Akan, Yoruba, Ebe, Fong, Nina, Bambara, Maasai, Lotsi, wherever we are in the world, Western Hemisphere, Eastern, and so forth, wherever black people are in the world, the same fundamental practice. Only differences are our languages, which are all related, slight differences, but they are related, and that can be shown. And then certain expressions of our culture, unique expressions based on our migrations to certain regions, different things we have gone through and as ancestral groups, and the way we've developed and interacted. So, but fundamentally it's the same piece. So, Ojida, or purification, operationalizes that ritual practice. Purification first, and then when you engage ritual practice, you're engaged in a practice that's harmonious and you're not reinforcing nonsense. This is why we deal with Ojida, to purify and, dispose of a lot of this nonsense, expose it and dispose of it. All right, so we just had a couple of messages. Want to make sure that people got those messages real quick. I saw somebody, a couple of people sent some messages right quick, so let me send that out. Let me respond to that real quick. But in the meantime, you can download KUKUU-TUNTUM, the Ancestral Jurisdiction. You can download MMARA Nechi, Divine Law and Divine Hate. And what we're going to do is show some things there. Okay, we just had a block real quick. Okay, so we've got to send that message off again. Okay, so it just went through. All right, so just another couple of announcements for the individuals who are in the chat room. If you're a guest in the chat room, if you would like to comment, if you would like to, post questions or comments, you must log in with the username. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one very quickly with Blog Talk. If you are on the phone line and you have a question or you'd like to make a comment, just hit the number 1, and we can see that your hand is raised, and then we'll call on you. We'll connect with you. So let's get into the information. Oh, one more announcement. For those who were not on last night, this past Akwesida, which is Sunday, a couple of days ago, we released 2 new publications. We released Patah Sasatem, which is an educational curriculum for Afuraitkaitut, for African adults, to educate ourselves on various aspects of our culture for our own development, but also to utilize as a curriculum in the education of our peers as well as our youth. And we've used this model that we developed as a curriculum in various settings: prevention settings, intervention settings, classrooms, regular classrooms, as well as African-centered, Afrocentric, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut school programs, homeschooling programs, after-school programs, the kinds of programs where people are, dealing with quote-unquote at-risk youth, all these different kinds of things. So this curriculum was designed for that. It's in 7 sections. As you read through the book itself is full of information, but it's also a manual to show you how to conduct 7 sessions, 7 40-minute sessions. The book is divided up into 7 sections. If you have, if you're meeting with a group, or even if you're just meeting with an individual, the way it's designed, the way it's structured is a way to convey this information in a fashion that people can digest it, understand it, and connect with it. 7 sessions of 40 minutes. So we have the book. The book was first published. We first published the ODWIRA as a curriculum in 13,005, which is Gregorian calendar 2005. Of course, we don't date ourselves based on a fictional cartoon character who never existed, Jesus or Yeshua, of course. So we're in the midst of the Afuraitkaitut, the great year, which is the 26,000-year cycle. Hence, our year is beginning with 13,000. So, for example, our new year begins on the first day of Atem or Atemera, autumn. This year, that was September 22nd. So that was our New Year's Day. That was the 7th day of our ODWIRA, our 7-day New Year's celebration, which we have every year. September 22nd was the 7th day, and it was also the first day of our new year of 13,015. So, and we have information about that on the, on the website, talking about the holidays and so forth. But we first published the ODWIRA as a curriculum in 13,005. Then we published the video. We were distributing the video, a 2-hour and 20-minute training video where we go through the entire book, go through the entire manual, walk you through the method of implementing this curriculum, answering various questions, clarifying issues, and so forth. That video, 2-hour and 20-minute training video for ODWIRA is on the website. And let me put that link in there real quick. So if you just go to the ODWIRA.com website, you'll go through the introduction and scroll down to our publications and services, you'll see the links to the ODWIRA. So the 2-hour video, 2-hour and 20-minute video is on the page as well. We also did a broadcast just last week where we went through the publication as well. So that's a 2-hour broadcast, Blog Talk archive, which you can download that as well. So you have a 2-hour and 20-minute video where we walk you through. It's the same kind of workshop. It was a workshop training that we did. Same kind of workshop. If you attended one of our workshops, you would get that same information. This was just a recorded workshop. So it takes you through the entire piece, and you can view that. And you can also listen to the archive that we just did last week. And the book is revised. So when we first published it in 13,005, when we did the revision, we just added some additional information, not a great deal of information, but we added some additional information to enrich the work and so forth. So that's out in soft cover now. This is the first time it's been out in soft cover for a few years. It's been online as a free PDF book, free ebook version for a number of years, but this is the first time in a few years that we've brought it back out in soft cover, this revised and expanded version. So the soft cover version is only $9, of course. You can see that on the Nhoma page on the website. The second book that we re-released, Mate, Masie, The Ancestorhood of Nana Yao, Dr. Bobby E. Wright. So basically what that book is, we take 7 Adinkra symbols, which are symbols in the Akan tradition, Akan culture. There are hundreds of Adinkra symbols that represent various aspects of life. all of the Adinkra symbols have Nde, or ancestral, divine ancestral wisdom teachings associated with them. Misnomer proverbs, but divine wisdom teachings associated with them. So when you see an Adinkra symbol, then it carries a great deal of information. So when people wear them on their clothes or wear them, paint them on their houses or carve them into, carvings and things like that, even tattoos for some people, it's a constant reminder of that divine wisdom teaching. And, of course, the geometric forms of these Adinkra symbols affect the consciousness of a person in a manner that stimulates us to realign ourselves with divine order. The geometric pattern itself, just like a Veve in Vodou, the geometric pattern of the Adinkra symbols, when your Ba, or your Bayat, your divine life force living energy, apprehends that geometric pattern and continues to circulate through that pattern, the response is it provokes energy that informs you in a harmonious fashion. So the Adinkra symbols carry that kind of energy, and then, of course, there are, proverbs, divine wisdom teachings associated with them. We took 7 that represent ethical existence, Obra, Ba, Obobra, Pa, and we went into detail about those 7, and then we compared that ancestral wisdom with the thoughts and formulations of Dr. Bobby E. Wright, who was a black nationalist psychologist. He made his transition back in the 80s. When we wrote the book, at the time it would have been his 70th birthday, and we were actually, we decided to write at that particular time. So that book we re-released. It's been online as a free ebook download for a number of years, but we released the soft cover version. We did a slight revision, released the soft cover version, and that one is $9 as well. So we released those 2 books this past Sunday. Those are available on our Homa page, and we'll put the link back up there. People didn't see that, so you can download those. So altogether, we have 15 books in softcover, available in softcover. They range between $8 and $11. And then, of course, the ebook versions of all of those 15 books are free downloads, and they're always going to be free downloads. But the softcover versions, we print ourselves, we print in-house on our own printers, and we print in color, and they're available now. So the only other thing is we also added to the website on Sunday new options with regard to discounts. So if you order 10 or more books, whether you order 10 books, 11, 12, 13, 14, or the entire 15-book set, 10 books or more, you get 30% off. So, for example, if you order 10, instead of paying $96 for 10 books, you would get the 30% off, so it's $66 for 10 books, basically $6.60 per book. And it's the same across the board. So before we just had the option for 10, when we had a 10-book set, then we had released 3 more books, then we had that same option for the 13-book set. Now that we have 15, we have separate PayPal buttons on the site for the 10-book set, 30% off, 11-book set, 30% off, 12, 13, 14, and 15. If you get anything less than the 15, any mix of titles, of course, is up to you. So it's not a set mix of titles, but if you order 10, it doesn't matter which ones you get. And people who have ordered them, they've been very appreciative of the quality of the information, the quality and content of the publication. People have ordered them, in a sense, like a set of encyclopedias on ancestral religion and culture and nation building, and saving on shipping, but also saving because of the discount price. So for those who would like to do that, we appreciate that. Get out there, you can go to the site, and, you can order 1 book or 15 books. It's up to you. We also, again, have the option for those who would like to become distributors of our work. You can purchase the work 30% off, and then you can sell the softcover versions retail wherever you are independently. You would be working for your stuff. All right. So now let's get to this information. The divinity, the nature of the Ntoro, the deity Maa, and his relationship to the Ntorot, or the deity Maat. So there's a couple of things that you notice right away. We show an image of the Abosom or the divinity Maa on the pictures, the images as you're looking at the site, and then we post that as an image for the advertisement or the event notification. And we're going to have this information published as well. There's a couple of things that's going on. First, individuals who have been involved in culture, who've been studying something about ancient Kemet, ancient Kanit, and so forth. Many people have never heard of Maat as a male divinity. They've never heard of him, they've never seen him, and they've never, of course, invoked the divinity. When we talk about Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut, ancestral religion, and we're talking about these Abosom, these divinities, as they are called in the Akan tradition, and of course that term Abosom comes from Bosun in ancient Kemet, meaning offspring of the great god and great goddess. They're called Orisha in the Yoruba tradition, and Vodou in the Fon and Ebe traditions, and Arusi in the Igbo tradition, the forces in nature. We're talking about the forces that spirit, forces that animate the sun, animate the oceans, animate the earth mother, animate the rivers, animate the black substance of space, animate the moon, the various planets, stars, and so forth, fire, thunder, the atmosphere. Just like your spirit animates your body, the earth mother, the earth itself is a body, but the earth mother is a major spirit that animates the physical body of this planet. The oceans, that's a physical feature of the planet, but there are spiritual forces that animate and enliven the ocean. Same thing with everything else naturally created. So when we talk about these Abosom, these forces in nature, we're talking about Abosom that we communicate with. They are conscious, reasoning, living entities, just like you're a conscious, reasoning entity. They're conscious, reasoning divinity, forces in nature. You're a miniature, conscious entity in comparison to the Abosom. We talked about like a mosquito landing on the back of an elephant. That's like us standing on Asase Afur, our Earth Mother, and Asase Ya, the other Earth Mother divinity. A living being. Mosquito may not know right away that they landed on top of an elephant. They may think they've landed on a rock. But at some point, it's apparent that it's a living being. We are specks on this Earth Mother. It's absurd, and it's just a measure of the pathology that we have inculcated from the whites and their offspring to assume and embrace the false idea that the deities are not real. Only we can have consciousness and reasoning capacity and be fully conscious reasoning entities, but they cannot be. That's absurd. The whites and their offspring promote that nonsense because they would like to control our movements, control our society. And the only way they can control a society that they invaded is to make the people believe that it was a divine intervention that they invaded and took over the way that they did. So after thousands of years of the whites and their offspring invading AFURAKA, Afuraitkaitut, invading ancient Kemet, invading various parts of the continent, and being crushed by us militarily on a regular basis for thousands of years, it took the whites and their offspring a while to finally figure out that they had to corrupt the ancestral religion, and that would be the only gateway for them to be able to take control. It took them hundreds of years to begin that process, and finally, over a couple of thousand years, they finally were able incrementally to totally corrupt ancestral religion for those of us who go along with that. And really only over the past 100 to 200 years has it really taken off with regard to black people embracing Christianity and nonsense like that, and Islam and so forth. Most of our people were not embracing that a couple of hundred years ago. Even though it was in existence, we have rejected it. And we get into a lot of the trustery of what took place in the western and central part of the continent in many of our broadcasts, so we don't have to rehash that, but we just want to point that out. The whites and their offspring understood they had to, in order to control the movements of the people, they corrupt the knowledge of the culture. So some of our people are walking around believing that, they study ancient Kemet, they approach studying ancient Kemet like some pseudo-nonsensical white atheists who can't communicate with the forces of nature because they are racially incapable of doing so. They are spirits of disorder. That's how they incarnate. So they have no capacity to communicate with the divinities that animate at all aspects of nature, as Afurakanu and Afuraitkaitut people can. So because they cannot, they don't want us to. They don't want us to communicate with our Nananum Nsamanko, our ancestresses and ancestors. They do not want us to communicate with the Abosom, the forces in nature, because when we do that, then we attune to divine order, and we only follow the directive coming from that which is divine, which means we will exterminate the whites and their offspring so they would no longer control our society. So they can't have that, so they have to corrupt the ancestry list, and that's what they, strive to do on a regular, daily basis. So some of our people have fallen into that, and we've rejected our own ancestral culture to embrace pseudo-culture that's manufactured by the whites and their offspring, whether we embrace Christianity, Islam, nonsense like that, or we reject that. But then we fall into the foolish trap of embracing pseudo-esotericism, pseudo-metaphysics and so forth, atheism, all kinds of backwards pseudo-nonsense, which, again, is a measure of our pathology. So some of us break away from that thought. Some of us want to get involved in real culture. We're naturally drawn to our ancestral culture. Sankofa means to return, go, and grab. Our Sankofa process mandates that we return, sang, ka, go, and fa, grab. We return back to the beginning of our pact with Inyamewa, Inyameo, Amenet, and Amen, the Supreme Being, to relearn or reestablish that pact that we made consciously, so that when we return to ourselves, we can, reestablish the way we should function properly in the world. So we don't just go back a few hundred years and see somebody on the continent, if they're having a problem in their society, they can look back a few generations and say, well, a few generations ago, things weren't like this. What were we doing? Where did we, go wrong, and so forth, and they can correct themselves possibly. If we look back a few generations, we're enslaved. So we got to look back generations beyond that, and then we're looking back into areas where we were fighting wars against the whites and their offspring, and brainwashed Negroes, embracing Islam and Christianity and so forth, and bringing that into the western and central part of the continent, and the east and west and so forth. So we go back beyond all of that. Our Sankofa process goes back to the beginning, to the pact we made with Inyamewa, Inyame, Amenet, Amen, as a spirit, a Sum before we entered into the womb, when we were given a specific function to execute in the world. That's encoded within our KRA, our soul, our divine consciousness, which we talked about last week, the Ka and the Ka'et, the soul, the divine consciousness, that deity that dwells in your head region that was assigned to you by Inyamewa, Inyameo, Amenet, and Amen. That force in nature that pulls you in your head region to align your thoughts, intentions, and actions with order on a consistent basis, and which is the foundation of your spirituality. When we align with the pact that we were given to find out what our function is in creation, and then why we came through a specific ancestral blood circle, and how to execute that function without creating disorder in ourselves and in our communities and in the world in the process, Anasase Afu, the Earth Mother in the process, then we've reached back. And then we can look at our ancestral culture, which we're drawn to, and see how things were established, see how a civilized society was established. We have established civilization. A civilization is a society, a social order rooted in the divine order of creation. So only Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut people have established civilization. The whites and their offspring cannot establish a civilization. They can establish a society, but they can't establish a social order rooted in the divine order of creation, because they cannot communicate with the Abosom or the Orisha, who are the embodiments of divine order in creation, who regulate order in creation. They can't align with them. They are repulsed by them. Like we always say, the two magnets on the table with the facing polarities, they repel. The whites and their offspring, their polarities are perverted. So they are repulsive to to divine order and the embodiments of divine order. They are repulsive to us. They are repulsive to the forces in nature. They are repulsive to all natural created entities. White Europeans, white Americans, white Asians, white Hindus, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Hispanics, and so forth, all of them who are non-Afurakanu, non-Afuraitkaitut, non-African, non-black, are the whites and their offspring. We call Achiwatiefo spirits of disorder. They're not capable of attuning to the forces in nature, so they are not capable of establishing a social order rooted in divine order. They're not capable of that. So we were able to do that. When we look back to our culture, we began to reconnect with that order that we established. Of course, our ancestresses and ancestors laid out the most extensive record of ancestral religion and culture anywhere in the world in ancient Kemet, and we have access to what they established, what they laid out, and we have a natural ancestral urge to go and connect with that. Just seeing the images stimulates our ancestors and ancestors to have that window of opportunity to communicate with us in a more profound way. We're not even talking about traveling per se there. We're talking about even just seeing the images of the Abosom, the images of the ancestresses and ancestors. That alone opens us to the degree that our Nsamafo who have been communicating with us on a regular basis can have a more profound, more direct communication because we're more open, we're more, ready to listen. So this is why we go back. This is why we're drawn. It's not cliche. It's not just a fad. This is an ancestral mandate. So we're drawn back and we begin to study our cultures and reconnect with our culture as we migrated away from the continent and migrated away from the eastern part of the continent and began to reestablish those cultures all over west, central, south, north, Afuraka, Afuraitkaitut, and parts of east and so forth, and into the western hemisphere, even through the forced migration of the enslavement era. We still have these practices. We still have our ancestral culture. So people studying ancient Kemet and getting information, they find that this information they've never seen before. It's not that Ma'ar didn't exist or this is some new information. It's not that this access to seeing the image of Ma'ar, who he is, what his function is, and his relationship to Ma'at was unknown. He's always been there. But individuals who follow the whites and their offspring who purportedly, refer to themselves or infer that they're masters, master teachers. Some people call themselves priests and priestesses and kings and queen mothers and traditionalists and spiritualists and so forth. But they didn't give you that information about Ma'al. They talk about Ma'at all day long, up and down, 24/7, day in and day out, use the terminology on a regular basis. But they never spoke about Ma'al because they don't know who Ma'al is. And if they don't know who Ma'al is, then they really don't know who Ma'at is, because these are forces in nature that we invoke, that they communicate with us. They possess. They communicate. They communicate through divination. They show themselves. We're talking about to adults and to children. We're not talking about initiates. We're talking about our direct connection with these forces in nature. All Afurakani, Afuraitkaitut people have the capacity and the responsibility to communicate with the Abosom who are connected to you by blood, who are assigned to you pre-incarnation, even before you were sent into the womb. You are assigned certain Abosom so that you can execute your specific function in the world. It is your responsibility to align with them on a regular basis as an adult. That has nothing to do with initiation. That's your responsibility. Priests and priestesses have a specialized responsibility similar to a neurosurgeon. Most people, when they have children growing up in the house, any disease that comes up, the parents take care of it because they know enough medicine and know enough remedies to take care of what's going on. If something major happens and the person once in their entire childhood has to go to the hospital, then they go to a specialist that can deal with something major. But typically, they know the medicine necessary to take care of these issues. The same is true with regard to the Abosom that govern us, that we are born within every Afurakani, Afuraitkaitut person, African person, black person, comes into the world assigned to certain Abosom, certain Orisha. And it is our responsibility to invoke them, communicate with them, and be fed and empowered by them. And the same is true with regard to our Nananum and Samanfo, our ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated. They have a responsibility to give us guidance. We have a responsibility to adhere to that guidance so that we can make sure our thoughts, intentions, and actions are in harmony with order based on the way we operate in our specific blood circle. So that's our responsibility. That's what we are supposed to do. Ma'a and Ma'at communicate with Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut people, have always attempted to make those communications. Sometimes we are neglectful because we've been brainwashed with pseudo-religion. If we've left the pseudo-religion alone, we've left the pseudo-philosophies alone, and we're trying to get back into something ancestral, then sometimes there's another wall put up by Negroes who think that they're Egyptologists, or Negroes who think that they're chematologists, or Negroes who think that they're linguists, or Negroes who think that they have some expertise. Whether they will say that overtly or they will infer it in a manipulative fashion, they claim to have some expertise, but they don't know what they're talking about. So this is why most of our people who have heard about Ma'at over the past few years, and some people who've been teaching about Ma'at for decades, have never mentioned Ma'a once. Or if they've seen the name Ma'a, they'll just say, well, that's just a word for law, it's just a personification, and it's, that's just a masculine term, but the actual divinity is Ma'at. But they've never seen him. So now we show, the first thing we do, we show Ma'a in the Shak and Duat, the 11th hour of the night, and you see the image of the divinity standing there. So you see him for the first time, most of us, and you see his name spelled next to him. And let's even before we get to reading that particular section from the text, when we talk about Ma'a and Ma'at and the KUKUU-TUNTUM, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, which is our publication, we posted that in the chat room. You can go to that. We spoke about Ma'a and Ma'at when we first published the KUKUU-TUNTUM in 13,002, which is 2002, the Gregorian calendar. So when you look in the section, the first section dealing with Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut, ancestral religion, we address Ma'a and Ma'at. And this is what we say. This is on page 28. We just go through this real quick. And this is what we talk about with regard to Ma'a and Ma'at. We say law is the expression of order. Divine law is the expression of divine order. The laws governing Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut society are expressions of divine order. Afurakanu man and Afuraitkaitut woman are two halves of a whole. We are the balance of one another. This is law in Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut society, and it is expressive of divine order. Amen and Aminet are the two halves of the divine whole. They are the balance of one another. Ra and Ra'et are two halves of a divine whole. They are the balance of one another. Ka and Kaek are two halves of a divine whole. They are the balance of one another. The sperm cell of the male and the ovum cell of the female are two halves which become one whole. They are the balance of one another. The divine order which permeates all of creation is the basis from which our cultural laws are born. The laws of Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut culture link our life activities to divine order from moment to moment to moment, day to night to day, month to month, year to year, lifetime to ancestral life to lifetime. As we embrace divine order through the laws of our ancestral clan, we link our thoughts, intentions, and actions to divine order. In this manner, we develop good character, and it is through maintaining good character that we create and live good lives. Ritual is the means by which we incorporate divine law and restore divine balance to our lives. Ritual is thus the gateway to divine order. When we attune ourselves to Amen, Aminet, we place ourselves in the position to know what is good for us and what is not good for us, what is needed and what is not needed, how to live and how not to live, how to function and how not to function. Through ritual, we place ourselves in the position to be fed by the divine force of law and balance in creation, whose male name is Ma'a, and whose female name is Ma'at. It is through the god Ma'a and the goddess Ma'at that Amenet establishes male and female balance in creation. It is these children of Amen and Amenet that govern the center of balance within our bodies, within the operation of our spirits, within creation. When we attune ourselves to Amen, Amenet in order to know right from wrong, what is necessary and what is not necessary, these spirits of divine law and balance, Ma'a and Ma'at, transmit the truth, the law, the divine order of Amen, Amenet to us. We then harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with the law. It is through Ma'a, Ma'at, that we are able to balance what we desire with what is in harmony with divine order. It is through Ma'a, Ma'at that we establish good character. So, and then we talk about the purpose of Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut, and ancestral religion. The reason we put that in the text in 13,002, 12 years ago when we put that in the text, because when we invoke Ma'at on a regular basis, Ma'a encourages us to invoke him as well. So if you're dealing with these actual Abosom, they're not going to just allow you to, blindly move based on what someone said. Ma'at is a female force of divine law and balance. She's a force in nature. She's an Abosom. And when we invoke her, she won't allow us just to invoke her. She will encourage us and let us know that Ma'a is real as well, and he will let us know as well. And this is what took place. This is why we began to include them in our libations and engage them ritually, because they are real divinity. Later we will find out who they are in the various expressions of culture on the continent. But these are forces in nature. So when you're actually dealing with the actual Abosom, the Orisha, the Ntoro, Ntorot, this Nomad Netoru, Netotu, they communicate just like you communicate with any other ancestral spirit, force in nature, and so forth. So the key here is that there's a great deal of misinformation based on the fact that most of the individuals are not engaged in that kind of ritual practice that they claim to be engaged in. Let us get to, first we're going to deal with language. We're going to show what Ma'a means, what Ma'at means. Then we're going to show them in different cultures, show what their function in creation is. Then we're going to give some information that some people may not have realized that they were dealing with this particular force in nature or have come in contact with it. So first we're going to look at our Maranechi, divine law and divine hate. Mara means law in Akan, and we're going to get into this language. So if you look in the appendix of the Maranechi, that again is on the Nhoma page, the publications page, and the website. You can download the book for free. The appendix on page 66, we show the Medutu for term Ma'at, Ma'a, and so forth. So of course, Ma'a means law and balance and so forth. Law, Ma'a. Female version is Ma'at. Ma also means to give. So let's look at those two terms. Ma'a means to give. Ma'a means law. That's in ancient Kemet. In the Akan language, Ma means to give and Mara means law. So we're talking about the same terms, both terms in both languages, exactly the same. In the Akan tradition, in the Akan language, there's an article, an emphatic article, ARA, which is sometimes added onto certain words for emphasis, just like you use an exclamation point when writing in English to give an emphasis to something. Well, we would use an emphatic particle to give emphasis, and that emphatic particle is ara. So when you have a term like, for example, ka, the term ka in Kemet means soul. In Akan, it's ka, but is the root, but it's also pronounced kara or kra. The term ba in Kemet means the spirit of life, the divine living energy. The ba bird, and we talked about that last night and went into detail about the ba and the baet in relationship to the ka and the kaet, the spirit in relationship to the soul. So ba is the divine living energy, the divine life energy within your body. Bra, Bara means the divine life or life existence, life principle in the Akan language. Ma or Ma'a means law in Kemet. Mara means law in the Akan tradition. So you have Ba, Ka, and Ma'a, spirit, soul, and law in Kemet. And then you have Bara, Kara, Mara in Akan, meaning the same thing. But the root of Bara is Ba. The root of Kara is Ka. The root of Mara is Ma in the Akan language as well. So those terms, Ba, Ka, and Ma, exist in the Akan language as well, but very often they add the emphatic article, which is like an exclamation point. So when we're talking about Ma'al, which means law, then Ma'ara, Mara in Akan means law. Ma'al means to give in Kemet. Ma means to give in Akan. You can even go further. For example, the term Mara She. She means to force, to command, to fix, to arrange, to force, to voice, to command. And then Mara means law. In Akan culture, the Mara She, one who fixes or commands. She, Mara, law, is one who is a lawgiver, one who voices the law. So in one respect, that's someone who legislates, but in a cultural context, one who voices She, commands She, the law, Mara, Mara She. Of course, you have that exact same title in ancient Kemet. Ma'al She, often written Ma'al Sheru or Ma'al Sheru, but Ma'al Sher, sometimes without the U, is the one who is true. Ma'al, dealing with the law of word. Sher, or true of voice. Sher, meaning voice or word or voice, to voice something, is the same as She in Akan, which means to voice or to command. Ma'al means truth, but it also means the law. In Kemet, Mara means the same thing. So we still have that title. Like when you read it in the papyrus of Ani, there's Asar, Ani, Ma'al Heru, Ma'al Sher, one who's true of word, one who voices Sher, the divine law, Ma'al. We still have Mara Sher, Akan, meaning exactly the same thing. And there are many other associations we have in the language. If you look at a hieroglyphic dictionary and an Akan or Twi language dictionary, you'll find thousands of words that have the exact same meaning intact, multi-layered meanings, because it's the same language. We migrated away with the same people, and we carried the same language with us. And that's true of the Yoruba and Ebe and Fon and other people as well. So we wanted to show that. Now, if you look in further with the linguist, if you look at, flip the page 68, we talk about the Coptic variation. So you have the term law, which is ma'al. In the Coptic dialect, which came into usage about 2,000 years ago in the late period in ancient Kemet, there are certain pronunciations that are slightly different. So you have ma'al, which means law, in the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and so forth. And by the time you get to the Coptic dialect, one of the dialectical variations of ma'al is me, M-E, me. That's very interesting because you also have the term for love or desire, which is me, and then you have the term me, meaning to see, inspect, or examine. So me means law, truth, right, what is just. Me means will or desire. Me means see, inspect, or examine. That's the Coptic dialectical variant of ma'al. So it goes from ma'al in older times to me in later times. Me meaning law, truth, right, and just is found as pe in Akan, meaning just, perfect, accurately, truly. Me meaning will or desire in Coptic, in the Akan language. Pe means will or desire. Me meaning to see, to inspect, to examine. In ancient Kemet, in the Coptic dialect, pe means to search, examine, investigate, watch, night watching, and so forth. So me, and me. Law, will, and to see, inspect, or examine. In the Akan dialect, you have pe, and pe, which is truth, justice, law, will, and to search, examine, and so forth. Same dialectical variant. So we show that to show a couple of things. Not only do we have the same terms, ma meaning to give, ma'a meaning law, in both languages, even in the Coptic dialectical variant, you have meh, meaning law, what is true, what is just. You have peh, meaning the same thing in Akan. You have meh, meaning will or desire. You have peh, meaning will or desire in Akan, and peh, meaning to see or to examine. And you also find ma'a means to see or examine, and it'll show the two eyes, the divine eyes, seeing or examining or watching. That's the old way to say it. And then the Coptic variation, ma'a, to see it or examine, to inspect, and then meh, to see, examine, to inspect. And you have, of course, peh in Akan. So in Akan, you have both variations as well. That means that the Akan people were still in ancient Kemet by the time the Coptic dialect became into usage, because we have both pronunciation. Some people may have migrated away earlier, but some of them stayed, and that's one way to trace that. Other ways are through genetics, other ways are through archaeology and so forth, but the linguistics in connection with the genetics, in connection with the archaeology, shows when the migrations took place, and they all, coalesce and support one another. So that's an important piece. Another important piece is with the pronunciation. For example, the term ba. Now you look at the term ba, B-A-A, and in our Akan culture, when there's a B, the B and the M are interchangeable. So, for example, the term bara, as we talked about, dealing with law, is spelled as a verb, B-A-R-A, but then when you add the plural, talking about laws, ordinances, and so forth, you add an M in front. You don't add an S at the end like English, you add an M in front of the B. So bara becomes mara, so it becomes instead of M-D-A-R-A, MMARA, it becomes MARA, M-M-A-R-A. MARA meaning law, and so forth. So when you have a B, the B and M is interchangeable. The term ba means to open, B-A-A, to open, to extend, to spread. And this is very key. So what we're going to look at is on page 68 and see what the relationship of that term is. When you look at the term ma'a and the way it's spelled in the Medutu, in the hieroglyphics, you'll see the forearm with the open hand. That's a key piece. And then you have the sickle, which represents the ma'a piece, and then the forearm with the open hand. You also have the plant, the foundation that's the deity stand upon, and so forth. So we just said that ma'a is also pronounced meh, meaning law. We also said meh also means to see, to inspect, or examine. What is the connection with the deity ma'a and ma'at, deities ma'a and ma'at, with number one, law, but also to see or to inspect, to examine. So when you look at the Medutu, we'll see the connection between that, and then that will show what their function is in creation, and we'll make the connection also to the Akan tradition and other traditions as well. So we say here on page 68, the term ma'a, also pronounced meh, referencing law as well as to see, is undergirded by the cosmology as demonstrated via the Medutu, the hieroglyphics. The A Medut, or the A hieroglyphic symbol in the word ma'a of the forearm with the open palm turned upward is shown here, and we show an image of that forearm with the palm turned upward. The showing of the palm turned upward is a showing of your hand. It is expression. It is a revealing of yourself and a revelation or a manifestation of integrity, uprightness, having nothing to hide. So when you show your hands and you put your hands out, it's a revelation of integrity. You're showing that you're clean, you have nothing to hide. It is openness and honesty. It is a manifestation of truth. At the same time, it is a ritual gesture. So from now on, when you see that open palm turn upward, it's not just a showing of the hand, because ma'a can mean to give, but it can also mean what we're talking about right now. When the hand is turned upward, it's a ritual gesture. While turning the palms towards someone is a ritual provocation. Like you turn your palms towards somebody like you're about to push somebody, even if you don't physically push them, and you're generating energy. Even if somebody's doing martial arts, they can generate that kind of energy, and they're pushing. That's a provocatory gesture, pushing energy towards somebody when the palms are turned outward towards somebody. However, when the opening of the palms and turning them upward, this is ritual convocation. When the palms are turned towards somebody, that's ritual provocation. When the palms are turned upward to receive, to be open to receive, that's a ritual convocation. It is a ritual, quote-unquote, announcement that one is ready to receive. Once we show or express through our openness, our cleanliness, our integrity, our righteousness, we have aligned ourselves with order, we are now eligible to receive the energy magnetic from the Supreme Being necessary for us to execute our divine function in the world. Such ritual convocatory gestures are used during spirit possession, and you'll see people when they're possessed, when they put their hands out in a certain way, receiving energy. They're used through divination and more in various Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut, or African cultures, inclusive of ancient Kemet, Hanif, and Akan culture. You will see images, for example, of the Abosom, or goddess Nut, in the tomb of Akan, and you look at her hands, her palms are turned upward, and the little medut for the letter N, which is a wavy line. It looks like an electromagnetic wave. They'll call it a water line, which it is, but it's also an electromagnetic wave. You'll see that electromagnetic wave floating above her hand. Her hands are turned upward. It's ritual convocation. She has that energy in her hand ready to receive and ready to give, and so forth. So we say in the same fashion, when one opens his or her eyes, it is an expression. Just like when you open your palms, it is an expression of openness, uprightness, and so forth. When one opens his or her eyes, it is an expression. It is a revealing of self, an opening to the Ka as the soul, the divine consciousness, and a manifestation of integrity, uprightness, having, quote-unquote, nothing to hide. We thus require that someone look, ma'ah, meh. Remember, to see, to examine, to look, to inspect. It's ma'ah, and it's also pronounced me'eh. So we require that someone look, ma'ah or me'eh, us directly in the eye, ma'ah, meh, because one of the terms for eye or eyes is ma'ah, also pronounced meh. So we require that someone look, ma'ah, ma'eh, us into the eye, ma'ah, ma'eh, in order to know if they are telling the truth. And of course, truth is ma'ah or ma'eh. So to look is ma'ah, the eye is ma'ah, the truth is ma'ah. To look or inspect is meh, the eye is meh in the Coptic dialect, and the truth is meh in the Coptic dialect. The opening of the eye is openness and honesty. It is manifestation of truth. Just as with the opening of the palms as a ritual method to receive the energy necessary to execute our divine function in the world, so is the opening of the eyes an expression of that process. We thus have the ritual of the opening of the mouth and eyes in Kemet, Hanif, as well as in Akan and other cultures. So that ritual is not just in ancient Kemet. We have that in various cultures as well, called the same thing. With the open palm or the open eye, we are revealing ourselves, expressing ourselves. We are thus able to receive, to draw, receive with the hands, receive through insight. So when your hands are open, you can receive. When you open your eyes, you can receive. You can receive through the hands, you can receive through insight. You can attract balance to our lives. Law, meh, is the instrument through which we attract balance to our lives. And this is why the term love and desire is also meh. Love is the instrument. Love, or meh, is the instrument by which we attract our balance to our lives. In this book, of course, the major thrust of the book is showing that the word ma'ah, law, and love is the same word. Not only in English with the LV and the LW, being the same consonantal structure. Of course, V was a letter, it evolved into the letter U. A few hundred years later, it evolved into the double U, or two U's side by side, or two V's side by side. So the V, the U, and the W are all fundamentally the same letter, even though they went through permutation by the whites and their offspring. But the alphabet was created by us, of course. That's why they interchange V's and W's. They'll say Sweden, some will say Sweden, some will say William, some will say Wilhelm, but the V's and W's are interchangeable. LV, love, and LW, law. Love and law is the same word and concept in our culture. Not only in the so-called English alphabet, which is a corruption of our ancient alphabet, LV and LW is the same word consonantally, but conceptually it's the same word. But then we show in ancient Kemet the term Ma'a, pronounced in the Coptic dialect, is Meh. The word for love or desire, as we said earlier, will or desire, love or desire, talking about that central aspect, attractiveness, magnetism, is also Meh. So the word for law, Meh, is the word for love, Meh. To be in love with an individual or entity is to be in law with that individual or entity, meaning your functioning with regard to that entity is in harmony with divine order. With respect to your interaction, your thoughts, intentions, and actions are in harmony with divine order. That's an expression of a law. That's a lawful relationship or a loveful relationship. Law and love is the same word. The whites and their offspring are talking about lust when they're talking about love. Falling in love, falling out of love. There's no such thing as that. Love and law is the same word. Law is Ma'a and Ma'at, a male and female divinity. You don't fall in Ma'at and fall and Ma'a and fall out of Ma'at and Ma'at. So we have a totally different concept, a proper concept of what love or law actually is. So the book goes into detail about that. So this is why we mentioned that in this particular section near the end. We said law, pronounced in the Coptic dialect Meh, is the instrument by which we attract balance to our lives. Love, or Meh, is the instrument by which we attract our balance, our complement, our spouse to our lives. So we get back to opening our hands to receive and our eyes to receive. This allows us to express our true nature and receive what is necessary to function. Upon reception of this energy from the Supreme Being, our influence and sphere of awareness expands. Law or love, Ma'a or Meh, and Meh, as the expression of order is thus the expansive pole of divine order. This is the key difference between law and love. There's expression, revelation, integrity, and attraction, as opposed to the belief that the focus of love is given. So we show that for a couple of reasons. The term Ma'a, also pronounced Meh, meaning law, also meaning to give, but it's also dealing with receive, opening the palms. When you look at the actual medut, the forearm is with the palms upward. When you look at the term ba in Akan, it means to open, to expand, to spread out, to extend. And the term is also the root of the term ba, also sometimes pronounced basa, but it's ba, it means a branch, a bow or a branch, but it also means an arm. So when you look at a bow or a branch, and the branch is bent, and it looks like a forearm on a tree, it's called oba or mba. That's also the term for an arm in Akan, mba. But mba also means to expand, to open, to spread out. So the same term in Akan, which is the branch, but also the forearm, also means to expand, to open, and so forth, is actually depicted in the exact same term, Ma'a, which means it shows the actual arm that looks like a branch and with the palms open. So we're talking about the same term in both languages, but then even pictorially it's depicted in that fashion. So when we have those terms in Akan, we can look back to ancient Kemet and see, why does the term Ba or Mba mean a branch, but it also means an arm? And why does it also mean to spread or to open or to extend? Because when you look at that medut, that hieroglyphic symbol that makes up part of the name Ma'a and Ma'at, it is the forearm with the hand up, the palms are up, that means to open, to receive. to receive the divine energy of Nyamewa, Nyame, Amenet, and Amen. Once you receive that energy, now you can utilize it to execute your function in the world in a harmonious fashion. When you open the palms, you are showing yourself you're being open, you're being honest, you're making yourself eligible to receive that energy. When you open your eyes, you're being open, honest, you're ready to receive energy. You can transmit energy through your eyes, but you also receive energy through your eyes. That's why Ma'a means law. Ma'a also means to see, to inspect, and they show the image of the eyes. Now, all of that is key, because now we talk about the name of the divinity. So that's the function of Ma'a, Ma'at, just on a linguistic level. We talked about earlier when we read from the KUKUU-TUNTUM that force of law and balance in creation. That's Ma'a and Ma'at. When you attune to that force, you rebalance yourself. It's on a physical, on a mundane level. If you're leaning over and you're about to fall and you regain your balance, you reestablish your balance, that's just on the lowest level physically. You know when you're imbalanced, and you know how to restore balance to yourself physically, because there is a force on Earth, force in creation, the magnetism of Earth and so forth, the gravity, based on the polar positions and the position of the sun, the Earth moving around the sun, all of that impacts your capacity to balance yourself. And of course, you know, what's in between, of course, your ears, the center of balance within your body. That's on the lower level. On the spirit level, Ma'a and Ma'at work in the same fashion. You have various organs in your body. The organs are smaller bodies within your great body. The same structure is manifest within the Supreme Being. Amen and Amenet are the great divine body of creation. The organs and organ systems within the great divine body are the deity, the forces in nature that animate the sun, moon, stars, black substance, space, and so forth. The cells of those organs are plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut, human life. And as we serve the organs of which we are a part, then we're serving the whole body at the same time. When your heart cell serves the heart and executes heart functions, it's serving the whole body at the same time. When you as a cell within the great divine body of the Supreme Being execute your function within the organ or organ systems of which you are a part, then you're serving the whole body at the same time. If you are an immune system cell within the great divine body, then you'll be naturally inclined to execute immune system functions. You'll see disorder and want to eradicate it. You may be engaged in martial functions, military-type functions, self-defense type functions, whatever it is, developing that, teaching that, training people, securing independent Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut nation, and you will be the individual that heads that up. Whatever manifestation it takes, you'll be naturally inclined towards that function, because that's what was encoded within your soul, your ka, your kayet, pre-incarnation. And then you were assigned specific Abosom divinities that have the fire energy necessary for you to execute that function. So you're given a function to execute in the world, and you're given a configuration of spiritual energy to execute that function. However, you do not execute your function in the world independently, just like the cells in your body don't just do what they want to do independently. Even though heart cells work in harmony with the heart works in harmony with the lungs and every other organ in the body. When cells try to do something totally independent of that order, they become cancerous and slated for destruction. And of course, the cancerous cells in the body of black humanity and of the Supreme Being are the whites and their offspring. And we don't repair cancerous cells, we eliminate cancerous cells. So, you don't function independently. You function in harmony with the organ or organ system of which you are a part. That's your divine function. But you must do so interdependently with the other organs as well. If you make mistakes and you get off track, this is why we have ancestral religion, to engage in ritual practices to incorporate law, ma'an, ma'at, and restore balance where imbalance has occurred. So you can't just do things however you want to do them. You have to do them harmoniously. You need to execute your function, but you need to execute your function in harmony and in flow with the other functions in the great divine body. In order to do that, you must attune to Ma'a and Ma'at on a consistent basis. You must ritually invoke them on a consistent basis to know if your thoughts, intentions, and actions are balanced. Just like you unconsciously, you don't even think about it, just on a physical, mundane level, you're constantly invoking the basic, fundamental, residual energy of Ma'an, Ma'at, just by sitting up in a chair and not falling over, strengthening your back, making sure you're not rocking from one side to the other. Only way if your perception is impaired because you took in some illegal substance or drank alcohol or something like that, and that throws your balance off, then you can't consciously balance yourself all the time. If you're not, engaged in that kind of nonsense, mood or mind-altering substances, then you're constantly engaging the residual exudations of the energy of Ma'a and Ma'at on a regular basis, just by virtue of the fact that you're walking down the street without falling over, sitting up without falling over, and so forth. Just like you do that on a mundane level, we must invoke Ma'a and Ma'at on a regular basis to make sure every thought, intention, and action is in harmony with divine order. That's our responsibility as adults. We talked about responsibility yesterday, and part of the the book we talked about, there's a section, one of the modules that we teach is a 7-part set of principal values dealing with asetiye, or responsibility. Connected to the 7 days of the week and the Abosom that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies of the 7 days of the week. So every one of those 7 principles is associated with a force in creation. So it's a holistic set of principal values dealing with responsibility for Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut adults. That's where we get into the notion of ethical life behavior. In our Akan culture, the term OKRA means life. OKRA is the creation of a certain kind of OKRA, a certain kind of life. You can have OKRA pa, or a good life, creating a good life, or you can have OKRA bani, which means you're engaged in the criminal, self-destructive, evil, disordered life. It's our responsibility to engage life in a harmonious fashion. So just like we have the term bara, which means law, mara, meaning law, coming from the root ma, in Akan, and of course ma'a, meaning law in Kemet. You also have mara, which means an ethical life. You're talking about ethics here. Of course, that's the same term dealing with ma'a, truth, balance, law, and so forth. It's the same concept. So all of those things, we show how linguistically these terms are related. They exist in ancient Kemet. They exist in the Akan tradition. And they directly related to the functioning of that force in creation. So just like when you look at the hieroglyphic symbol of the palm turned upwards, then you're opening yourself to receive. When you open your eyes, which is also the term for eyes, ma'a, then you're opening yourself to receive. And when you receive that energy, you process it and utilize it to execute your function in the world without creating disorder in the process. This is the function of ma'a. This is the function of ma'at. When you pull libation and invoke them by name, or when you say ritual prayers and invoke them by name, you don't have to. We're not dealing with you don't have to have a whole great number of elaborate rituals. Invoking the Abosom, pulling their energy, yourself and their energy closer to you, and you closer to them, you begin to align with them. It's no different than if you have a huge magnet on the table, and then you have a smaller magnet. If it's far away, it's outside of the orbit or the magnetic field of the large magnet. But as soon as it gets close, then you let it go, and then it'll start dragging across the table until it snaps and jumps to the large magnet. When we place ourselves back into the orbit or the magnetic field, so to speak, of Ma'a and Ma'at and the various Abosom, then we begin to realign ourselves, our thoughts, our intentions, and our actions on a consistent basis. And this is what maturity is. So this is why we invoke them. Now, we're going to get into who they are and how they show up in different cultures on the continent. Before we go forward, we want to make sure that if anybody has any questions or comments, I'm just looking through the chat room to make sure we didn't miss anybody's question or comment right quick before we move forward with that. And if you have a question, of course, on the phone line, you can just hit the number 1, and we can get to that. All right. Before we get to the how Ma'an, Ma'at show up in different cultures, and we'll be able to, their names are very similar, and they have this exact same function, of course, because it's the same divinity. So it's like you have the Aten, the sun, in ancient Kemet. The Akan people typically call the sun the ODWIRA. We're talking about the same orb. The Yoruba call it Orun. Orun is the same orb. When we talk about Asase Afua, the earth mother, Yoruba call her Onile. In ancient Kemet, we talked about Asase Nebet Hetepet and Asase Nebepet, the 2 earth mother divinities. They are called Asase Afua and Asase Yan Akan. And then in the Yoruba tradition, actually, they are Onile and the Orisha Yewa, and we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So we're talking, even though we have different names or descriptive titles for these forces in creation, we're talking about the same entity. So when we talk about Ma'a and Ma'at, you'll find that their names either exist in the various languages across the continent or descriptive titles of them exist. So sometimes if you hear the name of a divinity in the Yoruba tradition, Akan or whatever, and it doesn't match up with the name you find in Kemet, if you look at the descriptive title of the name of the same divinity in Kemet or in the other language, you'll find that it's the exact same title. So sometimes we're just using descriptive titles as opposed to the central title, Mrane, or praise names, as opposed to the, fundamental name. But if you look deeply within the language, you will find it there. So when we're talking about invoking Ma'a and Ma'at, doing that through the ancient language, of course, of Hanit, Tamek, these are forces in nature, even before you learn the language. Just by virtue of the fact that you're an Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut person, the spirit animating a physical body in the world, Anasase Afur, you are connected to these forces in nature, just like by virtue of the fact you go outside, you're connected to the atmosphere. As long as you have a Kayat, the soul of divine consciousness, you're connected to the Ka and Kayat, the soul of divine consciousness of the various divinities in creation. So even people who are deaf, mute, and don't know how to speak the language, that doesn't mean they can't, practice the culture. So the key is, yes, when you pray in the language. We don't pray in English. Even if you only know 1 or 2 words in a traditional language, you use those 1 or 2 words. But even if you don't know any words initially, the fact that your spirit has the intent and desire, which is pure, to reconnect and realign itself with that divine force in nature, just like the magnet wants to get back in the field of the great one, then once you move in that direction, of course the Abosom move toward you. If you go against their dictates and their direction deliberately because you just want to engage in lust and perversity, then you become repulsive. You reverse your polarity, and now you're like the little magnet that gets repelled and pushed across the table as opposed to being attracted. You make yourself repulsive, and the Abosom will repel you, and then your own cry, your own soul, divine consciousness, your Ori Inu, will separate from you, and if you don't do something to return it, have it to return or bring it back, reinstall itself, the Kra, the Ori Inu, the Selido, as they call it in Vodou, then it will separate permanently. And we talked about that the other night, and we also have details about that in our book on the OKRA complex, the soul of Akanfo. We talk about the OKRA, the Ka and the Kayat, the Ori, and so forth in detail. So even if you don't speak the language right now, the fact that you want to engage the process, sometimes even the language itself, you can somebody can ask you a question about what's a person's name or the name of a certain object, and you know the name of the object, but you say it's on the tip of your tongue, but you can't recall it. You know it. You know what the object is. The image is in your mind, or the image of the person is in your mind, but you can't remember the name at the time. You know what's going on. You can image what they're talking about. You just don't remember the specific artificial verbiage that's associated with that image that's in your spirit. when you have a desire to move and act and engage in certain processes, or if you have, a physical disorder, disease, or something's going on, you generate images based on that. You generate energy. When you're injured, there's an energy that's generated. The Abosom, the Nananoman Samafo, the Orisha, the Egungun, and so forth, they attune to the fact that there's a shift in energy. They see what's going on, this kind of emanations, this kind of luminous images you're generating in your mind about this situation, even before you get to the shrine and use words to explain. In order to explain what's going on inside of you, you have to have the experience and typically the images, or at least the feelings of what's going on inside of you first. The words that you use to convey those feelings is the last step of the process. You're just trying to give verbal, artifice to what's actually happening inside. The Nananoman Samafo and the Abosom attune to what's actually happening with your spirit, even if you don't have the words to wrap around and, articulate what's going on. They attune to what's actually happening. The same thing if somebody is deaf or mute. It's not that they can't communicate with the Abosom. They have images, they have, desires, they have ideas, they have feelings. The Abosom and the Samafo attune to that and communicate directly. So it's the same thing here. So when we're talking about Ma'a and Ma'at, or any of the Abosom, those who are connected to us, and Ma'a and Ma'at are connected to all of us, of course, all Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitut people only, of course. Then when we invoke them by name, we begin to pull that energy towards us. They pull us towards them. And we begin to notice a difference, a shift, and begin to be able to balance ourselves, our thoughts, intentions, and actions. Begin to balance situations in our lives and find the balance within our lives that allow us to find that point of equilibrium. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that right now. So first, let us read the section in the Shak Ntorot, the 11th hour of the night, where you see this particular image of Ma'a. You'll also find not the images, but also Ma'a mentioned in different Meru texts or pyramid texts and so forth. We want to show this because there's an actual image of the divinity. So, of course, the 12 hours of the night, when you look in ancient Kemet, Ra is riding in the boat of the Aten, of the sun. The sun itself is called Aten and Atenit. Ra operates through the sun. He created the sun along with Ra'et, or Ra'et created the sun along with Ra. And the Aten is a physical transmitter of that divine spiritual energy. They utilize the sun and other stars to transmit their spiritual force in the created universe. So you'll see Ra sitting in the boat of the sun, the Aten, sometimes sitting inside, there's Ra inside of the sun, showing that the spiritual force that animates that solar orb, Ra as well as Ra'et. So from sunrise to sunset, the boat is sailing across the sky. And the sky is seen as like a mass of water, so the sun, a fiery orb, is in a boat sailing across the mass of water from sunrise to sunset. Then when the boat sets in the west, in the Amet, in the western land, and then they disembark from that vessel and get into the quote-unquote night boat, and then go into the 12 hours of the night and go underground. So the sun setting and penetrating and going down into the ground is akin to a seed being planted in the ground. What you will see is you'll see Atem at that point in the setting sun, inside the red disk. Sometimes the sun looks like a red disk when it's set. You see the Abosom Atem with the red and white crown sitting inside of the sun. And, the setting sun is the energy, the consuming fire of the sun. Just like the rising sun, you'll see Kepra or Kopa, the explosive energy of the sunrise as opposed to the consuming, burning energy of the sunset. The expansive and contractive aspects of that solar energy is what we're talking about. Kepra, Atem, and Ra are three different divinities. They are subordinate to him. And of course, we have a book dealing with specifically Nyonkopon, Nyonkonton, Ra, and Ra'et, a whole book on them, and then we have a book dealing with Odumankoma and Tridriampong, which are the names for Atemu Kopa or Atem Kepra, and Akan and Kepra and Ancient Kemet. So we have books on them separately as well. But when the sun sets, goes into the ground, and then goes in the quote-unquote 12 hours of the night, then you see Ra. He's no longer in the form of a hawk, an aerial, animal. Now he's taking the form of a flat-horned ram, and he's a land animal. He's operating through the flesh of that flat-horned ram. So now, instead of flying through the sky, he's in the physical, under the ground, in the earth, in the flesh, in the matter. This is why he's called Afura. Afu means flesh. It also means house or place of residence. Your flesh is, Hafu is a house, place of residence for your spirit. So when Ra, the divine living energy, and Ra'et, the divine living energy, moves throughout creation, they are Ra and Ra'et, that expansive and contractive force. When they move through matter, when that, like solar energy penetrating the earth and getting inside the earth and heating up the earth, and the divine living energy moves through matter, then it takes on matter, and the matter becomes the flesh of Ra and the flesh of Ra'et while they are moving through matter. So they take on the titles Afura and Afuraitkaitut. And of course, the first landmass that rose up out of the primordial ocean is called Ka, male, and Kayat, female. That's the term for a landmass, a highland, a mountain, or a raised land. So the first landmass that rose up out of the primordial ocean is the Ka of Afuraka, Kayat of Afuraitkaitut. So that's, of course, the origin of the term Africa. Of course, we have a book called Afuraka, Afuraitkaitut, the origin of the term Africa as well. But when Ra is moving through the underworld, the 12 hours of the night, in the night boat, in the form of a flat-horned ram, Afura, that he's going through these 12 divisions. That's no different than when you take in a deep breath and that divine living energy gets inside of your system, your physical body, but your energy system is circulates through, now it's going through the 12 hours of the night as well. So when he's moving through the different regions, there are different divinities in the different regions. When your life force energy is circulating through your Sum, or your spirit body, called Sahu and Kemet, Sum and Akan, the spirit body, it moves through different regions. Those different regions have different deities that govern the different regions. In your physical body, the different organs and organ systems and glands and so forth are the shrines for the various deities, and they have different functions within your body, within your world. So when the divine living energy is moving through your body, it's moving through those different regions, it's moving through the 12 hours of the night. So once they get to the 11th hour of the night, there are different divinities there. One of them is Maat. So if you look at the particular text that deals with Maat, and there are other divinities there as well. Maat is just one of them. So he's one of many divinities. He's always been there, and it's very interesting. This information is not new. You can look at the book of the Amduat. You can download these texts all over the internet. They've been around for 100 years, and everybody who claims to study ancient Kemet or teaches the language and things like that, or priests and priestesses or whatever they would like to call themselves, they've had access to this information, but somehow they are never invoking Ma'at in connection with Ma'at. So we're going to show this information. So when they get to the 11th hour of the night, and these various divinities are shown, and they're shown in their specific forms and so forth, and the writing the names associated with them, and the animal totems, the Achinebois, the animal totems associated with them. This is what the text says with regard to this group of divinities, including Ma'at, is about. It says, those who are in this picture do this great God call by their names. And the great God talking about Ra, or Afura. And he calls them by their names, and he says, this is what Ra says to these divinities in the 11th hour in this section, including the god Ma'at. He says, my hidden appearances and my secret radiance cause your life, O you who advance to your shadows, who are free to move or are shrouded in respect of the arms by the form in his holy places, whose breaths are the utterances of my mouth, which give life, and you speak therewith, whose offerings are on my boat, whereon your baths your divine living spirits live. You who have water at the source of Nu, wherein the dwellers in the ancestral realm wash with shouts of joy, perform that which is it is your right to do, and let your vows be in the following of my created thing. Then he says, their work in the duat is to make to advance the hidden things of this great God to the hidden house each day when they appear with this great God in the upper heaven. So when it says their work in the duat is the ancestral realm. They just talked about these are the divinities. Their breaths are the utterances of Ra's mouth. So the divine living energy emanating from these forces in nature in this region of the duat empowers the ancestresses and ancestors, and of course empowers us. So these forces in nature, they have their breath carries the energy, the divine living energy of the utterances, sound vibrations of the mouth coming from the creator and creatress. When it says their work in the duat, meaning these deities, including Ma'at, its work in the duat is to make to advance the hidden things of this great God to the hidden house each day when they appear with this great God in the upper heaven. The hidden things. We're talking about Ma'at, and of course we're talking about Ma'at, divine law, divine balance. The hidden things to advance the hidden things. That which is hidden, that's an English term. The term is sheta, that which is hidden or concealed or covered up. It's to advance the hidden things. What is hidden? What are we trying to get to? Now we're talking about accessing information, the truth, the law that is quote-unquote hidden from us or inaccessible. It appears at first consciously. Now we're talking about divination. We're talking about accessing the laws that undergird a certain thought, intention, and action or behavior so that we can make sure that everything that we're doing is in harmony with divine order. We just don't want to jump out there immature and engage in thoughts, intentions, and actions that are foolish, because the decisions that we make determine the direction our lives will take. We're not here to engage in disorder and spread disorder. We have a specific function to execute in the world, just like every cell in your body has its own function. It just doesn't do whatever it wants. If it does whatever it wants to and rejects the divine order, then you develop cancer. So it's the same thing with us. We don't want to become cancerous cells. We want to get in alignment with the force that dwells in our head region, our Ka. In order to do so, we must align with that which is quote-unquote sheta or hidden. Make sure that whatever undergirds our urges, if you have an urge or a motivation to engage in a certain behavior, make sure that urge, what undergirds that? Attune to that. Is it in harmony with law or not? Ma'at helps you to advance that which is hidden, laws that undergird your motivation, and the lust, if it's misguided, that's undergirding your motivation so that you can reestablish balance to your life. So it says to advance that which is hidden things of this great divinity to the hidden house each day when they appear with this great God in the upper heaven. So they're advancing that which is hidden so it can be brought to the fore. You want to be able to ma'ah or meh, to see, to inspect, to examine. What do you want to see, to expect, and examine? You want to expect the ma'ah, the law, to see what is in balance, what is out of harmony with balance, so that you can bring it to the fore, you can advance it, and reestablish order to your life. You engage that process first and foremost by invoking the divinity by name. Ritual prayer, ritual song, and so forth, ritual dance, meditation, whatever you're engaged in, ritual practice to invoke this divinity, to send that energy, provoke the energy of that divinity so you can be informed by that force in creation. All right, so that's just one major function of the divinity. Now let's get into some the ways these forces in nature manifest in the culture, in the different cultures, and some of their descriptive titles, some of them you may have heard, especially in the Yoruba tradition and the Akan tradition, you may not have heard. All right, so we talked about, in fact, what we're going to do first is we're going to read a story in our Akan tradition. We're going to read a story in the Yoruba tradition, and then we're going to pull these things together and show you who these who this force is. So first, I see that we had a question real quick or a comment. Okay, so the question is, I believe that those invocation movements are found in some African dance styles. Can I draw them that way just as effectively as ritual prayer? So, yes, so they are found. So actual movements that you see, you see sometimes people practicing things, but the movements of the specific Abosom or specific Orisha, and they have their own dances. We learn the dances when they possess for the first time or afterwards, and they engage their own dance. And the way they move their arms, legs, and so forth allows them to receive and transmit energy in a specified fashion. When we see that, then, of course, we move in that same direction so we can get into the same flow that they are in to receive their energy as well. So, yeah, you'll find those provocatory gestures in movements. You'll see those invocatory gestures, invocatory gestures, and so forth, evocatory gestures, different movements that receive, process, and transmit to me or the divine living energy of the Abosom in a specified fashion, in a measurable fashion, in a quantifiable fashion. Our culture quantifies these various movements, including the different ritual colors, geometric forms, aromas from the different, herbs that are burnt, like, frankincense and myrrh, things like that. Sound vibrations for different tones and everything that we have, shapes, sounds, colors, music, everything that we do, it's all cataloged, it's all quantifiable, it's all connected to that force in nature, to a specific force in nature, and it's something that we can draw on as a reservoir of energy that we can attune to that stimulate our energy and stimulate our consciousness so we can align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with order. And when we're talking about the text, somebody asked a question. The text that we were just reading from, it was the 12th hour, the Shot in Duato, the book of what is in the underworld. You can find that in different places. The one I read from was The Egyptian Heaven and Hell by Wallace Budge, but you can find it in various places on the internet. I just looked at archive.org because I wanted to pull down something quick, and I wanted to specifically to be able to pull it down on the internet where you can actually see the image. Some books, of course, they don't have the images, or some, you go on Google Books and you may not find the image, or that particular page you may not be able to see. But in that one, they actually had the image where I could actually pull it down and you can, see it. But the book of what's in the Duat, or the book of what is in the underworld, that's the name of that particular text. Hour number 11 in the book of the Duat, or book of what is in the underworld, that's where you will find in that particular text the image of the deity Maat, his name, of course, him standing there, the same image we show, and his specific function in creation in relation to these other divinities. All right. So, so first we're going to read something from the Akan tradition, then we're going to read something from the Yoruba tradition, and then we're going to get into showing you how Maat as well as Maat show up in the different cultures, but we have to get to that first. I want to lay the foundation here. So there's one story about how the days got their names in the Akan tradition. This is just one of the stories that's told. It's to teach a specific lesson, so it's a specific tale, but it's encoded a number of lessons that are encoded within. So the story is short. It just goes like this. A long time ago, before the days received their names, Odomankoma created Kuntu. Odomankoma in the Akan tradition is often misnomered the creator. He is not the creator. Odomankoma is Atumukopa or Atim Kepra. It's the divinity Atem. And again, we have a book on Odomankoma and Kepra to go into detail and prove that he is the same divinity in ancient Kemet as he is in Akan tradition. But so just so you know, and then Oboade, when they mention Oboade in this story, Oboade is the divinity Ptah of ancient Kemet. And of course, Ptah Sasatim book, we talk about Ptah as well. So Long time ago, before the days received their names, Obosom Maat was actually the finisher of creation, subordinate to Ra, but he has a creative function as well. Before the days received their names, Obosom Maat created KUKUU-TUNTUM. KUKUU-TUNTUM is a little monkey character. It happened one day that KUKUU-TUNTUM and Obosom Maat got into a big fight. Obosom Maat said to KUKUU-TUNTUM that he heard about Obosom Maat Oboade, really saying Atem Kepra Pata, but not KUKUU-TUNTUM Oboade, and he killed KUKUU-TUNTUM. So KUKUU-TUNTUM, the little monkey, was trying to challenge the divine finisher or prescriber of the world. Now, Obosom Maat had a servant named Foa. It's F-O spelled in the story, but depending on the dialect, it's pronounced Fo. In the Asante dialect, it's Foa with the diphthong. So he had a servant named Foa. This Foa servant, or F-Foa, is the colobus monkey, the little monkeys that kind of look, little small monkeys with the long tails that they move and act, they look like little human beings. That's what the F-Foa in Akan is. So Obosom Maat had a servant named Foa. He asked Foa to put KUKUU-TUNTUM into a pot and cook him. The next day, Foa came and told Obosom Maat that KUKUU-TUNTUM was cooked. Obosom Maat called that day Aben, to cook, from which we get Benada, which is Tuesday. KUKUU-TUNTUM was allowed to cook for some time, and Obosom Maat asked Foa to check on the meat. Foa reported back that the hair on the body came off. Obosom Maat called that day Ku, to shave, from which we get Wukuda, which in English is Wednesday. People began to talk, and Obosom Maat asked Foa to investigate. Go investigate and see what they're saying. Foa reported back that people were asking why Obosom Maat killed KUKUU-TUNTUM. Some people said they heard Obosom Maat say he heard about Obosom Maat Oboade, but not KUKUU-TUNTUM Oboade, and that is why he killed him. The people blamed Obosom Maat and went into their houses. Obosom Maat called this day Yao, from which we get Yauda. And Yao means to shoulder or to affright or to chide or to scold or to affront and so forth. It also can mean to attack, aggressive, fire, and so forth. Again, Obosom Maat asked Foa to go and see what else people were doing. Foa noticed that people were beginning to come out of their houses, going back to the business little by little. Foa reported this to Obosom Maat, who called this day Fi, meaning to come out, from which we get Fida, which is Friday. Obosom Maat instructed Foa to find out more about what people were doing. Foa observed that people were eating and drinking. He reported this to Obosom Maat, who called this day Mimini, to swallow, from which we get Miminida, which is Saturday. Time passed, and Obosom Maat asked Foa to go out and see what people were doing. Foa reported he saw people washing their clothes because they stayed in their houses for a while, eating and drinking. Obosom Maat called this day Si, to wash, from which we get Kwesida, which is Sunday. The next time, Foa noticed that people were calm and had cooled down. He reported this to Obosom Maat, and Obosom Maat called that day the day on which he killed KUKUU-TUNTUM, Jo, to be cool, from which we get Joada, which is Monday, or the day of the moon. Appreciating all that Foa had done, Obosom Maat told him he would do something so that people would never forget his name and all he had done for him. Obosom Maat attached Foa's name to every function and title relating to people. A few examples are Akanfo, Ebibifo, Akuafo, Akanfo, etc. So in our Akan tradition, you'll notice that the term for plural when you're talking about a group of people is Foa. So you have Akan, you say Akan people, you say Akan Foa. If you say Ebibi, which means someone who is black, Ebibini, the plural is Ebibifo. The group of people for who are Ebibi or Ebibri, which are black. Somebody who engages in the Akom process, meaning getting possessed, the priest or priestess, they're part of the group of people for who engage the Akom process, Akom for, they're Akom people. For is kind of like saying for. So this little colobus monkey, a servant or attendant or assistant of the divinity Obosom Maat, he sends the little colobus monkey fall from the heavenly realm to the earthly realm to go observe, to watch, to inspect, to examine what the people are doing on every day of the week. And then he comes back and tells the divinity what people are doing, and then the divinity gives a name or a function for that particular day that organizes the energy of that particular day. And then he sends them back out to find out what's going on, to examine, to inspect, and so forth, and he comes back. So the little colobus monkey, he becomes the assistant of the divinity, the sacred assistant of the divinity. And then we're named after him as human beings. And when you see the little colobus monkey, the way they move and operate, they look, even look at a video, they look and operate like human beings. They're so close. This is why the whites and their offspring try to put forth false notions that we, evolved from apes. We're not talking about chimpanzees here. We're talking about the colobus monkey in particular. I think that's a critical entity in West AFURAKA, Afuraitkaitut. Now we're going to show you something in the Yoruba tradition, and then we're going to show you something in Vodou, and we're going to pull this together with ancient Kemet and show you who Ma'a is in these various traditions. So bear with us. And by the way, we have 14 minutes left in the live broadcast on the internet. If you want to continue to listen past 11, or we may go a few minutes past 11 in overtime, then you would have to call in. You have 13 minutes to call in, so you can be on the phone and listen past 11 o'clock. The call-in number is 657-383-0635. 657-383-0635. You have 13 minutes to call in. And once you call in, then you can listen on the phone. You can still hit the number 1 if you have a question or comment and make your question or comment on the phone. But at 11 o'clock, you won't be able to listen any longer on the Blog Talk screen, on the Blog Talk channel, because it'll cut off. All right, so let's get into the Yoruba tradition and get some more information here. This is what we're going to read from a couple of places. We wanted to talk about this particular colobus monkey in the Yoruba tradition. It's like a little colobus monkey, the long-tailed assistant of the divinity who goes to see and examine and inspect Ma'a, man, for the divinity and bring that information back so balance can be brought. We're going to look at the colobus monkey in the Yoruba tradition and see what they talk about with regard to him. We're going to read one section talking about this story and then another variation of it from another text. So this variation of it comes from the book Ifa Will Mend Our Broken World by Wande Abimbola. And you can actually see this on Google Books as well. Ifa Will Mend Our Broken World. So he says, it begins on page 18. He says, the ancient covenant between the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the human beings was finally broken in Ile Ife, which is the seat of Yoruba culture. Now, several verses of Ifa, which is the divinatory system in the Yoruba tradition, is Ifa in Yoruba, Afa or Fa in Vodou, Afa in Igbo, and so forth. But several verses of Ifa tell us how this happened. In ancient times, human beings did not give birth to more than one baby at a time. A wife of Orumila, and Orumila is the male divinity of wisdom. He is, in Yoruba, he's Orumila. In Akan, he's Bre Chirihunuwate. In Kemet, he is Tahuti. Okay, so a wife of Orumila, known as Keregunlele, daughter of Awujale, was the first woman to give birth to twins. They were named Edun, the same name which the Yoruba give to the colobus monkey. The Edun twins looked like apes, even though they were human. They had deep sunken eyes like apes, and they also had tails, even though they walked erect on two legs like humans. They were not identical twins, and they were not of the same sex. Orunmila, the father of the primordial 8 human twins, taught both of them how to divine and perform sacrifice. But since they were never really accepted as humans, they escaped into the forest to live with their mother's other children. Teregunlele, their mother, had married 20 different husbands before she married Orunmila and gave birth to Edom. She had married Oluigbo, the supernatural power who governs forests, and gave birth to Erin, the elephant, in that marriage. When she married Oluodan, she gave birth to Efon, the buffalo. She was also the mother of Agbonrin, the antelope, Agbe, the blue Morocco bird, etc. It was in the company of these other children that the Edom twins found ready acceptance. They therefore made the forest their permanent home. But according to this verse of Ifa, it happened one day that Olofin, the priest king of Ife, was mysteriously lost in the forest. The male Edom saw him, rescued him, and brought him back to the city. Olofin, who was the priest king of Ife, then organized a big Thanksgiving ceremony to mark his return to the city. He invited, as usual, all species of birds and animals. The animals made Erin, the elephant, their leader. He was assisted by Efon, the buffalo. But to the amazement of the animals, they were turned back one by one from the party. The elephant was the first to leave the party in anger. Since then, only dead elephants come to town. Living ones avoid the city. The buffalo, the antelope, the duiker were all turned back like the elephant. But after some initial hesitation and doubt, Edom, the colobus monkey, was allowed to join the party and was eventually readmitted into the society of human beings. He was placed among the Ifa priests who advised Olofin, which is the priest king, the divine king. But all the other animals who were turned back never returned. Thus it was human beings who broke the ancient covenant in Ile Ife, leading to the separation of humans from the rest of creation. And he has another piece. So here you have another colobus monkey. He is Edom, the male Edom. He's the one who assisted the divine king to get back into civilization, into the divine order. Because he did that, he was placed among the Ifa priests who advised Olofin. Let's get another perspective on this Edom. So twins are called Edom. They're called Ibeji, but they're also called Edom because of this Edom. So let's get into the Ibeji, and we're going to give you some detailed information here, and this is a variation on that same story here, but giving more texture to the story. And you'll see how, we'll show you how it all connects. It says this poem is in the literature of Ifa and describes the honorable relationship between Edom and Ibeji. The Ibeji means twins. Ibi meaning to beget, and G meaning, or Eji meaning two. So Ibeji meaning to beget two, multiple births. And twins, just in general, are called Ibeji in the Yoruba tradition. So the poem in the literature of Ifa says, may the sacrifices be accepted and blessed. This is the verse of Ifa, which talks about Ibeji. It talks about who the Ibeji really are on earth and what they are from heaven. It discusses especially how they are on earth in a position of honor and as something to be greatly regarded. Out of the 400 Imole, meaning Orisha, of the right, and the 200 original Imole, or Orisha, on the left, the Ibeji have been counted together with them. Before that number was established, they are not an addendum. This is talking about the Ibeji. The twins were part of the original Orisha. They are not an addendum. Even before the 400 and 200 number was created, the Ibeji were already there. How the Orisha are among human beings and how they're So before that number was established, they are not an addendum. How the Orisha are among human beings and how their honor and their ashe dwell with all things everywhere. This is how the matter of Ibeji also is. This is because the Ifa verse, which discusses them, talks about how Orunmila, the deity of wisdom, nicknamed Ajana, first gave birth to the persons who are known as Ibeji in very ancient times. These persons who were children of Orunmila are known as Edun. The Ifa priests predicted for her that she would have 2 children at the same time. They predicted that the children would turn Orunmila into a king. They asked Orunmila to perform sacrifice with 2 rats and 2 fish, 2 hens and 2 pigeons, 2 goats and 21 calories. Orunmila performed the sacrifice. Peregun became pregnant again. Talking about Peregun Lele, they call her Peregun in this version. Peregun became pregnant again. When she delivered, she gave birth to twins, one male and the other female. They called them Edun, the colobus monkey. The male one started to study Ifa. The Ifa which he learned was not as great as the one which he knew before he was born. That's key right there, because we talked about how Ibeji are not an addendum to the original Orisha. They were already there. But when he was born into the world, this was a spirit, this male Ibeji, male Orisha, being born into the world. He began to learn Ifa, now that he's back in the world. But the Ifa that he learned, was not as great as the one which he knew before he was born, when he was still in the spirit realm. So he had an Ifa that he had already learned. That's going to be key when we talk about this later. The boy began to visit his mother's other children. And remember, in the previous version, the other children was the Erin, the elephant, Ephon, the buffalo, and so forth. He started to go to their homes. He understood the language of animals very well because they were his mother's children. He understood the language of birds very well because they too were his mother's children. He also spoke the language of human beings. At this point, another story is introduced. It describes how Oba Olofin of Ife needs to find medicine in the woods for his sick son. Now, this is a little bit different because the other story is talking about he got lost. Here they're talking about Olofin of Ife, the priest king, the divine king of Ife, needs to find medicine in the woods for a sick son. That's the medicine portion of it. The medicine is the bark from a particular tree, which he is having great difficulty finding. He is becoming discouraged and fearful. Finally, he arrives in a part of the forest inhabited by a number of colobus monkeys. Then Edun, who had come there from the city, said to his colleague, Iwa, being life or existence, is lost. Iwa is lost. Iwa is lost. This matter was not understood by his colleague. He then started to go towards the place where the lost king was, where the lost king was going up and down senselessly in the forest. He saw Olofin. He greeted the Olofin. Olofin also greeted him. He then used his tail, the colobus monkey used his tail to sweep clean the foot of a certain big tree which had plenty of shade. Olofin said that he could no longer know where he was going. Now he's showing that he's lost. But at first he was looking for medicine for his sick son. At this time in the story, Edun goes to the river and offers Olofin water. He accepts and returns to the city with the monkey. Olofin, okay, and for those, again, if you want to listen past 11, you have like a minute to call in, 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. You only have a minute to call in, or else you won't be able to call in after that. And we will be going into a little bit of overtime, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. All right, so getting back. So he says, at this time in the story, Edun goes to the river and offers Olofin water. He accepts and returns to the city with the monkey. Olofin refused to admit that he had been lost. Because of his arrival home, many festivals and celebrations began. The people said, you, Edun, you are the relation of we human beings, but you are also related to the animal. You will henceforth reproduce yourself as a human being, and that will allow us to live with you. Edun said that he would reproduce himself among human beings in such a way that his children would look like human beings, but they must not called his children by any other name than Edun. It was after that human beings started to give birth to twins. As soon as they gave birth to twins, they would say, Edun has come. Since then, the parents of twins must not eat the meat of the colobus monkey because they realize that it is he who has come to be, reborn as a child in their home. The parents of twins must never kill the wild Edun of the forest. If they kill him, they know for certain that they have killed a colleague of their children, and they would suffer the consequences. Therefore, twin babies who were first born by Orunmila are the ones who started among human beings, the family of twins. Since then and until today, in all cities founded by Orunmila himself, he has given them the commandment they must not eat the meat of the colobus monkey. So now we're talking about the male Edun, the colobus monkey, a child of Orunmila. He's one of the twins. The male Edun is a child of Orunmila. When he comes into the world, he assists the priest king, the divine priest king, to find the medicine and find his way. He's lost. The ways where he needs to go and what he needs to do, what he needs for balance and so forth are hidden, the hidden thing. Edun comes along to advance the knowledge of what is hidden and bring it to the fore so he can help restore balance to the world. So this colobus monkey called Edun, assistant, child of Orunmila, he learned Ifa when he came to the world, but it wasn't as powerful as the Ifa he had learned when he was in the spirit realm, when he was a spirit with his sister. You have, remember, you have two Eduns. You have the male and female Edun manifest in the world as Ibeji, as twins. The male one is the focus here of this particular story. So why is there a focus on the male Edun in this aspect? And he becomes a priest of Ifa in both stories and so forth. We talked about the Foa, or the name of the colobus monkey, in the Akan tradition, and how he became one who inspected, surveyed, got messages from the physical realm, the human realm, and brought them back to the divinity as his assistant. One more key. If you look in ancient Kemet and you look at Tahuti, he has a specific assistant. And that assistant is called different names. Aran. In Coptic, it's An or Anan. A-N-A-N. If you look in the Book of the Cow of Heaven, and we show an image of that, Tahuti sitting in the boat with wearing his crescent moon, and he's the Hapui bird, the crane-headed divinity, and next to him is his assistant, Anan, or in Coptic, Anan. This is the dog-headed baboon, the famous dog-headed baboons that you see in ancient Kemet with the long tail. They're representative of the ancestral community, but they're also divinities as well. Now, I want to see which page we have that image on. In the KUKUU-TUNTUM, the ancestral jurisdiction. It's actually on page 42. It's from the stele of Nefer Renpet. You see Tahuti sitting in the boat, and you see Aran or Eran sitting in the boat with him, the little monkey. His assistant, his divine assistant, representative of divine wisdom. Sometimes Tahuti will take on the form of that dog-headed baboon, the little monkey. But typically when you see that monkey, that is the assistant of the divinity, the assistant of the divine wisdom, his servant, so to speak. This is the same Foa in Akan, the little monkey who's the servant. That monkey is also called Adua Shane or Odwira Shane. Odua Shane is the white-tailed colobus monkey. So it's a black body with a little white tail. Shane means white. So the Adua Shane is also F4 in Akan, the monkey who's the assistant, the divine assistant that goes back and forth from heaven to earth to inspect, to examine, to teach, to show what's going on, to bring that which is hidden to the fore, to be what's seen. In the Yoruba tradition, the Edun, the male Edun, the male twin, he's the fourth. He's the assistant of Orunmila. He becomes the Ifa priest. He shows the divine priest king get his bearings back, get back in order, bring order back into a chaotic situation. And he's a divine. The specific Ifa that he learned when he came back on earth was different. It wasn't as great as the Ifa he learned when he was in the spirit realm with his sister. Who is his sister? His sister is Vodou, and he is Edun. So you have the monkey Edun, and you have the female Vodou. Vodou is Maat. Vodou is Maat, the codification of divine law. You have Orunmila, who is Tahuti, the divine wisdom, the male force of divine wisdom in ancient Kemet. He's called Orunmila in the Yoruba tradition. The female force of divine wisdom is Seshat, the divine scribe, and Seshat and Tahuti work together. They're the divine wisdom. Ma'an Ma'at are the codification of that divine wisdom in the form of the law. So they do work together, and sometimes they will pair Tahuti and Ma'at together. However, Tahuti and Seshat, because Tahuti is also called Sesh, which means scribe. He's the divine scribe. Tahuti and Seshat are the male and female forces of divine wisdom. She's also called Sefik Yabu. Sefik Yabu is where they get Sophia, Sophisha, or Sophia, the goddess of wisdom in Greek, which of course they stole that directly from this goddess of wisdom in ancient Kemet. It's not Seba, it's actually Sefik Yabu. And when you look at the etymology of the name Sofik, you'll understand why it's directly related to wisdom. So we did a whole broadcast on that. And we showed that Tahuti and Seshat in Kemet is also Brechiri Unwate and Abrewa in Akan. You see Tahuti and Seshat holding the palm branches, marking off and measuring the year, measuring life, and so forth with the palm branches as a measuring stick. Because that palm branch, that palm tree is sacred to them. And then she writes on the leaves the names of the person in their individual lifetime. Brechiri Unwate is Tahuti and Akan, and Aberewa, the root is Bre or Abe. Abe is the palm tree in Akan. Ebe is the term for the palm nut, but it's also the term for proverb or divine wisdom teaching in Akan, because when you have the palm nut, when you go into the nut and everything that can be extracted from it is so great you don't see it from the outside, but when you look at in the inside what is hidden, you can extract much from that nut of the Abe tree. So an Ebe or a proverb or a divine wisdom teaching is the same name as the palm nut. But the palm tree is Abe, and the palm tree leaves are bereu, palm oil leaves. The word for time is bere as well. So you have the palm tree, abere, palm tree leaves, bereu, divine wisdom teaching, ebe, the term for time, bere. This is why Aberewa is the great mother of divine wisdom, and Abere Chirihunuate is the great father of divine wisdom. That's Tahuti and Seshat. When they use the Abe or the palm fronds in ancient Kemet, the palm tree in Akan with the same name is the same word for the palm tree, is the same word for time. Tahuti and Seshat, as the great scribes, they measure time, they measure creation. This is how they bring about science in the universe. Because the measuring of time is the calculation of all things in the universe, everything being put in its proper place, in its proper order, in its proper time. Bere, they use the palm tree, bere, to calculate time and measure time. They're the divine measurer. So that's why it's associated with the palm tree in Akan. You also find that when the Ifa priests, when the Edun, the monkey is, an Ifa priest, they use palm nuts to cast Ifa. And then when you look in the Vodou tradition, which we're going to get into next, Vodou, which is the great female divinity who is Vodou in the Yoruba tradition, she's Vodou, Gbadu, Vodou, Vodou. She sits on top of a palm tree, and the palm tree is called Fa. And she has 16 eyes, which are the 16 nuts of the palm tree, and Lekba goes up the tree and helps her to open up her eyes when she's trying to find out what needs to be done. That's the deep Ntorot practice. So you see the palm tree with the divine wisdom, male and female force of divine wisdom in ancient Kemet, Tahuti and Seshat. They use the palm fronds to measure and calculate time. Then the palm tree itself is Abe and Akan. And divine wisdom teaching is Ebe, that which comes from the Abe. But then Abe or Abede also means time. And then the name of the divinities, Abedewa, the time of the divine wisdom, fourth, female fourth of time, wisdom, calculation, and so forth. And Bede Chirihunuade, the divine male fourth of time, Bede, wisdom, calculation, divine wisdom, and everything else. So that's Tahuti and Seshat, divine wisdom. But then the codification of that wisdom is Ma'a and Ma'at, the law, the expression of wisdom, the expression of order. In the Yoruba tradition, that is Odu for the female. That's why you have the ODWIRA and so forth. That Odu on the female side, but her brother is Edun on the male side. The Ifa that he learned when he was born into the world is not the same and as powerful as the Ifa he learned when he was in the spirit realm with his sister before they came into the world. Odu and Edun, the divine codification of the law of the female, and then this male colobus monkey who's the assistant of Orunmila. When you look in fact, even before we get to Kemet, when you look again in the Akan tradition, we talked about Ma'al meaning to give, Ma'al meaning to open, and so forth, to spread out, and talking about that's the name of the divinity. And Akan, Ma'al means to give, just like in Kemet, Ma'al means to give. In Akan, Ma'al means to open, like the opening of the eyes. In Oba means to open, to spread out, to extend. In Kemet, to open the eyes so that you can examine is Ma'al. And the term for that divine eyes is Ma'al, and the Ma'ati are the two T divine eyes. The name of Ma'at in our Akan culture is Oma Me. It's a combination of Oma, to give, and Me means satisfaction or fullness, to give fullness or to spread, expand, open, fully open, lay out the divine law. Oma Me. Ma'a in ancient Kemet, Ma'a Me in Akan. But then you also have the twin divinity in Akan is called Abam. Abam Kofi, his praise name or his Kradean soul name is Kofi, but Abam Kofi, Abam is the divinity. So you have Oma, or Omame is Ma'at, and you have Abam, which is the twin divinity. He's called Edun in the Yoruba tradition. He's called Abam in the Akan tradition. Edun is the male divinity of law. Odu is the female divinity of law. Abam is the male divinity of law and balance. In Akan, Oma Me is the female divinity of law and balance in Akan. Twins are seen as divinity. The fourth is the nation. When you talk about the two Edun coming into the world, male and female, when people have twins, there's a cult, quote-unquote cult of twins in the Akan tradition, in the Yoruba tradition, in the Vodou tradition, all across the continent. They are seen as children of deity. So there are special festivals of twins that some places last for days, some for a couple of weeks. In the Akan tradition, the Abam festival happens around harvest time. They help to maintain fertility in the community. They are the forces of divine balance in the universe, the polarities of divine balance. That's what the twins are. Twinning is the foundation of creation. Amen and Amenet are the great father and the great mother. Then you have Ka and Kaet, Hehu and Hehut, Nun and Nunet, Ra and Raet, and on and on and on. You have Ma'an, Ma'at, Tahuti and Seshat, or Sesh and Seshat. You have Alsar and Alset, Set and Nebehet, Anpu, Anput. You have all these various divinities, and there's twinning going on because that's the balance of creation. That is the structure of creation. So, the Ibeji in the Yoruba tradition, Abam in the Akan tradition, Hoho in the Vodou tradition, Ho-Ho. Ho-Ho is the divinity of twins in the Vodou tradition. The Badu Gbadu. Badu is the divinity of divine law. She is the codification of divine law. She sits on the tree of Fa, the palm tree. Again, the palm tree, Fa. Sometimes Fa is used as a title of Orumila. Fan, F-A-N-T, is a title of Tahuti when he's one of the 42 assessors of Ma'at. Fan. So when he's assessing Ma'at, when there's the balance of the scales, when you're balancing the heart against the feather, when somebody makes their transition, or throughout your life, and when somebody makes their transition, the heart is being measured against, the feather, balance against the feather. A couple of things are happening. One of the 42 assessors of Ma'at that the person must go before and invoke. They're not just 42 commandments. You say, I have not done this, I have not done that. That's not what's happening. This is not Christianity. What you're doing is going before 42 different deities and invoking each one of these deities ritually and harmonizing your energy with theirs. Just like if you went to somebody's house in Yoruba tradition, open the front door, you see an Eshu, a shrine of Eshu, and maybe their Ajogun right there, the warriors right there. You would salute their shrines, invoke them before you move forward. Then you go further into the house, and there may be an Orisha, there may be a, Orisha of Obatala or something, then you would salute the shrine of Obatala. Or if there was another shrine in the house, you should salute the shrine of that divinity and invoke that divinity. It's the same process. When we go make our transition, we go before these 42 divinities. And just like we invoked them on earth, fused our energy with theirs so we could get in harmony with them. And if we were out of harmony with them, they would repel us. But if we were in harmony with them, we demonstrate that by invoking them and infusing their energy with theirs. That's why the texts talk about the name of this divinity is so-and-so. He does this and does that. You invoke that divinity, harmonize with them, and let them know what you have done and what you have not done. It's not just saying it. This is ritual prayer, ritual invocation. Each one of these divinities, these 42 assessors of Ma'at. And we did a broadcast on the 42 enunciations of Ma'at, talking about that whole process where we go in front of these 42 divinities. The Akan calendar, for example, is a 42-day calendar, ritual calendar. Every 6 weeks there's an ancestral observance. Every one of the 42 days is governed by different Abosom. So we invoke the different Abosom. So it's similar to the 42 nomes of Kemet, based on the 42 assessors of Ma'at. These are deities going to different shrines. Just like they would go to different shrines of these 42 divinities when they were alive on earth, when they make their transition, you invoke them as well. Just like you have a number of different organs in your body, more than 42, that you must align yourself with so you won't get sick. But one of the titles of Tahuti when he's functioning as an assessor of Ma'at is Fan, F-A-N-T. That's where you get Ifa from and Foa in Akan, of course. But when he's functioning in that capacity, he is the divine wisdom. But when you see that judgment scene, and just so we say in Vodou, the palm tree itself is called Fa, and sitting up on top of the palm tree is Badu, which is Ma'at. They'll talk about in the phone, Dahomian phone culture, they'll say Badu is male and female. Just like her parents, Mawu and Lisa, they are male and female in one. That's not saying that Mawu and Lisa is an androgynous entity. Mawu and Lisa function together as one unit. Mawu is the great mother, Lisa is the great father. This is Aminet and Amen. Badu is similar in regards, talking about Badu is the female is Ma'at, and the male is Ma'al, also manifested as Hoho, the twin divinity. And Hoho, the twin divinity, is the same as Edun in the Yoruba tradition. We're going to read something dealing with Vodou, talking about the twins associated with colobus monkeys in Vodou as well. But Badu, Ma'at, the codification of divine law, sits upon the palm tree. Palm tree itself is called Fa. So once again, you have the palm tree associated with Fa, which is Tahuti in ancient Kemet. Tahuti and Sashat carry the palm fronds. In Akan culture, you pray Chiri Unuate and Abrewa, Tahuti and Sashat, and that the root of their name is palm tree and so forth. And in the Yoruba tradition, the palm nuts themselves are used for fa, or to cast dafa, ifa divination. When you see Tahuti at the scales of judgment, and he's standing there and about to notate what comes out of the judgment when the heart is being weighed against the feather of Ma'at. So you have Ma'at there. Sometimes the feather of Ma'at is in the scale. Sometimes the image of Ma'at herself, she's sitting in the scale, and of course she has the feather on her head. What's key, however, is if you look on top of the scale, right in the midst of the balance, you will find the dog-headed baboon sitting on top of the scale dealing with the equilibrium of the scale. He's sitting right above and looking down at his sister Ma'at, because that baboon is the same Edun we just read about in the Yoruba tradition. It's the same Foa, or ODWIRA Shane, that we read about in the Akan tradition, the little monkey that's the assistant of the divinity. It's the same as Ho, the twin divinity, in the Vodou tradition. So you have Tahuti, who's the divine wisdom, but then you have Ma'at, and you have the little monkey sitting on top of the scale. That monkey, that assistant of Tahuti, as we said, is called Anan, but in Coptic, Eran, Eran, A-N-A-N or E-N-A-N, Eran. This is where you get Eran or Edun from in the Yoruba tradition. It's the same monkey. It's the same force. It's a colobus monkey in West Afuraka, Afuraitkaitut. It's the sacred baboon in East and North Afuraka, Afuraitkaitut. It's the same force. He's dealing with equilibrium, balance. The Ibeji, the twins, dealing with balance or equilibrium, bringing balance into the world, the polar opposites that are complementary, that govern all of creation. This is why twins are seen as sacred. They are seen as children of divinity. And the mother of twins is seen as one who gives birth to divinity, so she's honored as well. In the Yoruba tradition, she is Iya Ibeji, the mother of twins. And the twins themselves are called Ibeji, but they're also called Edun. In the Akan tradition, the twins are called Ntoro, and the divinity is Abam. They have an Abam festival that happens around the harvest time. It lasts for a couple of weeks in certain areas. The mother of twins is called Owonta, and she's sacred as well. She is a shrine for divinities to come through her womb. And they have the energy of divinity. So if you go against the twins, people have to, give offerings to the twins as well as the twin divinity Abam to keep balance in society, even keep balance in the fertility of the land, balance in the atmosphere, in the region. We're talking about divine balance, equilibrium for that divinity. In fact, the term for equilibrium in Akan is Adene. Adene is just a variation of Edun or Edin in Yoruba, and Edan or Aran in ancient Kemet for the same monkeys, the same little force that's the assistant of Tahuti, but the balance of the female divinity. This is Abam and Omane, Ma'a and Ma'at. Edun and Odu, Ma'a and Ma'at. And then, of course, you have Ma'a and Ma'at in ancient Kemet. Let's look real quickly at a couple of things dealing with Vodou. There's a story about Mawu in the Vodou tradition. They talk about Mawu. It says, after creating the earth and all life and everything else on it, Mawu became concerned that it might be too heavy. So she asked the primeval serpent, Vodou, to curl up beneath the earth and thrust it up into the sky. When she asked Awe, a monkey she had also created to help out and make some more animals out of clay, he boasted to the other animals and challenged Mawu. Gbadu, the first woman Mawu had created, this is Ma'at. Gbadu saw all the chaos on earth and told her children to go out among the people and remind them that only Mawu can give Tikpoli, which is the divine function, including the breath of life. Gbadu instructed her daughter Minona to go out among the people and teach them about the use of palm kernels as omens from Mawu, When Awe, the arrogant monkey, climbed up to the heavens to try to show Mawu that he too could give life, he failed miserably. Mawu made him a bowl of porridge with the seed of death in it and reminded him that only she could give life and that she could also take it away. This is, of course, in Vodou, amongst the Fon and Heve people, Fon people specifically in Dahomey. It's the same story we read about, same variation in the Akan tradition, when the arrogant monkey, Kuntu, tried to challenge and boast against Obosom Maat, but then Obosom Maat, the divinity, killed him for trying to challenge. The cancerous cell tried to attack the healthy cell, and eventually, if he had been successful, he would take over and consume the whole body. So he killed the arrogant monkey, but then he had the servant, Foal, the colobus monkey, to execute functions dealing with divine order, investigation, examination, ma'al, and so forth. And we went into that process. Now we're going to read something about Vodou as well. So it's the same story, different cultures, talking about the same thing. Now they talk about the Ho-Ho cult. Ho-Ho, this is an old written, a book written a while back, talking about Ho-Ho in the Vodou tradition, the patron divinity of twins. They call it the Ho-Ho cult. He says Wolf cannot decide whether Ho-Ho, to whose parentage the twins are referred, is the guardian of the twins, or whether he is God who has taken possession of them. So this is somebody speculating about who they are. But Ho-Ho is the divinity of twins, just like Abosom in Akan culture, Edun in the Yoruba tradition, and so forth. And in this text it says they appear in some way to identify twins with Ho-Ho and call the father Ho-Ho Jito and the mother Ho-Ho No. After the birth, a couple of plates of food are prepared for the Ho-Ho, for the divinity, and a woman herself, the mother of twins, gives the invitation to the food which she has prepared and of which she has placed small portions in the dishes in the terms, "This food is yours, I give it to you." The remainder of the food is eaten by the visitors. Here again we have a rudimentary sacrifice with suggestions of a twin priesthood. When a twin dies, and this is the key portion, there are curious ceremonies to be gone through, which may be important in the interpretation of the twin cult. The parents buy a white hen, maize beer, meaning corn liquor, a new calabash, and a piece of white linen. They go out with a crowd of natives into the bush. They look about for a long-tailed monkey, Mirkatse, which is the colobus monkey. And when they see it, they say, quote, "See, there is Ese," meaning the dead child. The monkey's name is also Esio. The twin mother takes the calabash, pours some beer into it, corn liquor into it, and calls the monkey, saying, "Come, Ese, let us go home." After 3 calls, she shuts the calabash with the stopper and binds it up in the white linen. Ese is now inside. Then a woman kneels, and the twin mother puts the calabash on her head. The woman has a string of cowries given to her, which she holds in her teeth. She is now supposed to be possessed by the deity Ho-Ho. They return home, the twin mother marching in front. They throw cowries to the carrier woman, which are picked up for her. On reaching home, the contents of the calabash, which are now supposed to involve Ho-Ho, are poured into the twin dishes. The birth sacrifice is repeated. And finally, the dish that is supposed to belong to the dead child is covered up. So what they're talking about is, and this happens in different ways across the continent, when people have twins, they're seen as divinities. If one of the twins dies, then here they associate the deceased twin with the spirit of the colobus monkey, just like in the Yoruba tradition, Edun is the colobus monkey, the twin divinity, and so forth. Same thing in Akan. If somebody dies, they make a sculpture of the deceased twin. The living twin will carry that sculpture with them. They will invoke the twin divinity, Abam in Akan, Edun or Ibeji in the Yoruba tradition, Ho-Ho in the Vodou tradition, to bring that spirit, that balance back, because one of the spirits are gone, one of the polar energies are gone. And then they'll have a shrine for that twin divinity, as well as a shrine for that twin spirit, a little sculpture that they keep, for the rest of their lives. And then when that twin makes their transition, then a sculpture is made for them, and those sculptures are placed together. So that's key because how the twin divinity in the Vodou tradition is once again associated with the colobus monkey. That same monkey is the Edun in the Yoruba tradition, the same baboon-headed divinity sitting on top of the scales of balance, weighing the scales, inspecting Ma'a, examining Ma'a, making sure the balance comes out right, and then there's a report that's given to Tahuti. So all of these things are connected here. I just want to make sure, see if we have any questions or comments in here. Didn't miss anything. Okay. So, looks like we have one comment on the phone. Hey, Michio, you had a question or comment?
Yes. My question, you can hear me good, is some of the monuments that's left from our people, from example, like the Olmec head to the Stonehenge, is there any relationship between these sculptures that our ancestors placed around the earth?
Yeah. So Carla's talking about Stonehenge in Europe, and then Olmecs, what they would call Olmecs in Mexico. So pyramids in Mexico, the great structures, great sculptures of heads that are like very, very tall, 10, 15 feet high, huge sculptures that the whites and their offspring came in contact with and had heart attacks because they saw these huge sculptures of the faces of Afuraitkaitut people in Central America at 3,000 years old. They saw pyramids thousands of years old. Of course, they found evidence that even of writing and, of course, the skeletons of our people showing that we were the people who founded these civilizations thousands of years ago here. Every continent, every naturally occurring separate landmass surrounded by water is a major organ in the body of the Earth Mother. Different regions of those continents resonate different frequencies, just like different parts of the United States. You go to the south, kind of energy, warm energy or whatever. You go to the northeast, where cool energy, it affects the people, the way they operate, the way they speak, the way they move. You go into the west and south, people move a little bit slower. Talk with a southern drawl. The energy is slower. The heat, it affects the way people move and operate. But there are different regions of the Earth Mother. There are different natural shrines in different regions of the Earth Mother. When we would build temples and tombs and Meru pyramids and things like that in different places, anywhere we are in the world, we're attuned to the region of the Earth Mother where we are, the natural shrines of the Abosom in these areas, and we will build a structure around those natural areas. So that's the case wherever we migrated in the world, whether it was all over AFURAKA, AFURAITKAIT, different parts of Southern Europe, North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, Asia, and West Asia, Eastern Asia, and Australia. So yes, there's a connection between all those things.
Okay. All right, then. What other questions? Well, no, that's pretty much it. Besides, I kind of missed the first hour of the show. Normally I would ask questions about the first hour, but I timely tuned in. I had to re-listen back. But the topic sounds pretty good so far. Let's continue. Be done.
Okay. Merase. Appreciate the call. Okay, so we just wanted to, get through all of that information. We got through what we needed to get through. I don't think we missed any major points. But the key is, number one, Ma'a is an actual divinity. Ma'at, an actual divinity. They are twin divinities, Ma'a and Ma'at, the expansive and contractive force of law and balance in creation. It is through them that you are able to find and establish your equilibrium, that which was hidden from the, on the surface, in the conscious mind, consciousness of your spirit. You attune to those forces in nature and restore your balance to your thoughts, your intentions, and your actions so that you can execute your function in the world harmoniously without creating disorder in yourself and in your community and the Earth Mother in the process. Attuning to Ma'a and Ma'at is through invocation of Ma'a and Ma'at. Not just through reading and things like that or memorizing certain things. The experts on the ancestral culture are your direct blood ancestresses and ancestors that you have direct access to all the time. So even though we may have been neglecting them to a certain extent, or maybe neglecting the urges from the Abosom to a certain extent, now that you're aware, now that you're, quote-unquote, your eyes are open, it is key that you connect with your Nananoman Samafo, your ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, and connect with those elders and elderses, because those are the real elders and eldresses. If you have individuals who have been promoting information, talking about Ma'at for years, even decades, and have never mentioned Ma'a one time, or have no clue of who Ma'a is, imagine how much misinformation in other areas may be disseminated by such individuals. Because the key to the tradition is the invocation of the Abosom. When we began to write things down and, scribe things down and build structures and things like that, that's an effect of the culture. That's an effect of the communication. That's an effect of Akan or possession and Nkam or spiritual communication. The communication comes first. The investiture of the energy of the Abosom within our Sum, our spirit bodies, comes first. And then we express that through the culture. That's an effect of the possession. So you don't start off trying to create a culture and then make something up. We don't make up the divinities just like we didn't make up the planet Earth, the sun, moon, stars, and anything else. They exist. We attune to them. We harmonize with order, and then we express ourselves accordingly and properly. So the root of the culture is the invocation, the alignment, the direct communication, and then we can express ourselves properly. So we just want to get through all that information. I think we should mention, if we didn't, that the divinity, twin divinity in the Vodou tradition, they'll also talk about how he governs the two eyes. And, of course, you have two eyes, two ears, kidneys, lungs, and so forth. Twin divinity governs that twinning, but he governs the two eyes. It's like Ma'a means law, but Ma'a means eyes, to inspect, to see, to examine. And then the Ma'a T means dual and ancient Kemet. The Ma'a T are the two divine eyes, the sun and the moon. In the text, they say when Ra opens his eyes, sun shines. When he closes his eyes, the sun sets. There's darkness when he opens his eyes. Closes his eyes, and light when he opens them. The right and left eyes is the sun and the moon in the face of the great divinity in the sky. So when we're talking about these twin divinities, governing the twins, he also governs the divine eyes, which are Ma'a. You have Edun, is the male divinity twin. Odu is the female codification of the law. That's Ma'a and Ma'at. Oma, Me, and Akan is Ma'at. Akan, the twin divinity male, is Ma'a. So we have all of these, and Badu is Maat or Matu or Badu in Vodou, and then the male Badu is also the twin divinity in Vodou. And then we show these associations with the colobus monkey in the western part of the continent, the assistant of the divinity of divine wisdom, but also the male divinity of divine law, the examiner, the one who inspects for the divinity and so forth. You'll find that he's the colobus monkey in the western part of the continent. He's the sacred baboon in ancient Kemet, sitting on the scale of Ma'at, and he's called Eran in ancient Kemet. He's called Edun in the Yoruba tradition, and the term for balance or equilibrium is Etenin or Etenin in Akan. So we're talking about the same thing. We pulled this information together not only to, show who this divinity is, who Ma'a is, and put him in his rightful place, which he's always been, but we've just been neglectful of him. If you don't know who Ma'a is, and you don't invoke Ma'a ritually, then you have cut yourself off from one half of the balance of all of creation. So if people have only been focused on Ma'at, which is good to focus on her, because a lot of people downplay the female, but to discount the male is just as imbalanced as discounting the female. On the other side, just as we have shown, for example, in the KUKUU-TUNTUM that we published in 13,002, 2002, and even with the Uben Shan that we published in 98, talking about Amen and Amenet, Ra and Ra'et, Ka and Ka'et, because we invoke them so we know who they are. And every Afuraitkaitut person, every normal Afuraitkaitut person can invoke Amen, Amenet, Ra, Ra'et, Ka, Ka'et, Ma'a, and Ma'at, these various divinities. They are connected to us. It is our responsibility to invoke them. And because we did that, this is why we get this information. Of course, the textual references are going to be there because it's reality. So even before we get to the textual references, we know they're going to be there once we look and once we're directed to find them because it's reality and that's what our ancestors laid out. But the key is aligning yourself with that force in creation. Do that through the agency of your own Kra, your own Krawa, your own soul, your own divine consciousness, with the guidance of your Nananun Nsamanfo, your honorable or spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors within your own blood circle. The circle of authority that governs your practice of ancestral religion comes directly from your blood circle. It does not come from outside your blood circle, no matter what foolish credential or pseudo-credential someone puts forward for you, whether they're from the continent or they're from here, whether they have come from a long line of initiated people, they're PhD or so-called elder, it doesn't matter. Only thing that matters is what's true. What is Ma'a? What is Ma'at? And you get that information directly from your own people, from your own blood circle. Most of whom, in our condition here, we don't typically have people in our blood circle who are elders and eldresses in the culture because we've been conditioned by Christianity and Islam and Hebrewism and all Moorishism and all kinds of foolishness like that. But you are going to be the people who will be those elders and eldresses from this point forward with your own children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and so forth. In the meantime, however, our focus is on primarily our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors, which is not a bad thing because they give us the pure tradition, uncut. It's purification. It's ODWIRA. This is what we're talking about. So, Yedase, we thank everyone for tuning in. Again, for those who came in a little bit later in the broadcast, we did mention that we released 2 more books 2 days ago on our Kwesida Fatasa Satem and Mate Masiye. So now we have a total of 15 softcover books that are available. They only range between $8 and $11. For those who would like to order the whole 15-book set or just a 10-book set, 11, 12, 13, 14, or whatever, we have the 30% discount. So, for example, if you ordered 10 of our books, instead of paying $96 for 10, you would get 10 for $66, basically $6.60 per book. And many people have ordered the entire set, and they've been appreciative of the information. So if you would like to support the work that we are doing and you value the work we're doing, of course, all of the books are available for free as free ebooks online, and that's always going to be the case. But the softcover version, since we print them in-house on our own printers in color, then we do sell those, and we make them as cheap as possible, $8 to $11. So if you support the work that we're doing and see value in that, please go to our website. I'll put it in the chat. You can still see in the chat room. To the Nhoma page on our website, ojirafo.com, ODWIRA, F as in free, o.com/Nhoma, NHOMA.html. That's the Nhoma page, the publications page. Even if you just go to the regular website, scroll through the introduction, you'll see our services and publications, and you'll see the link that says Unhoma Publications. You can go to that page. You can download all 15 of the books for free immediately, but you can also make a purchase of one book, $8 or more. So, again, Yedase, please support what we're doing, and we will be back on tomorrow. For Equua Marketplace, we will be sending out a confirmation event notification for that very soon. So, Yedase, we thank you for supporting the show, and Yebeshia Dio. We will meet again.